Blood pooled beneath her broken body. 3% battery. One last message, one wrong number. Lena Carter's trembling fingers typed what she thought were her final words to her brother, a desperate plea from a woman dying alone on a cold apartment floor. But fate had other plans. That message never reached family. Instead, it landed in the phone of Adrian Voss, a man who ruled the city's darkest corners with an iron fist and ice-cold silence. What happened next would shatter two worlds and ignite a war no one saw coming. Stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The apartment smelled of copper and regret. Lena Carter couldn't remember when she'd stopped screaming. Maybe it was after the second blow to her ribs, or the third. She'd lost count somewhere between the sound of cracking bone and the taste of blood in her mouth. Now she lay motionless on the hardwood floor of her studio apartment, each shallow breath a knife twisting in her chest. The afternoon sun cut through the Venetian blinds in harsh strips, illuminating the dust motes that danced indifferently above her broken form. Somewhere in the building, a television blared a game show. Canned laughter echoed through the walls, life continuing as usual while hers drained away in a spreading crimson pool. Her phone had skittered across the floor during the assault, coming to rest just inches from her outstretched hand. The screen glowed with a cruel 3% battery warning. 3%. That was all she had left. In her phone and maybe in her life. Marcus had left 20 minutes ago. Or was it an hour? Time felt liquid, slipping away like the strength in her limbs. He'd stood over her for a long moment after that final kick, his designer shoes, the ones she'd bought him for his birthday, planted on either side of her head. She'd seen her reflection in the polished leather, distorted and pathetic. "You brought this on yourself," he'd said, his voice calm, almost gentle. That was the worst part, the gentleness. "If you just listened, Lena. If you'd just done what I asked." Then he'd stepped over her like she was trash on the sidewalk and walked out, locking the door behind him. The deadbolt's click had sounded like a coffin closing. Lena's fingers twitched toward the phone. Pain exploded through her torso. Ribs definitely broken, maybe more than one. A whimper escaped her lips, pathetic and small. She'd promised herself she wouldn't cry anymore, but tears came anyway, hot and useless, carving tracks through the blood on her face. Her vision swam as she stretched her arm, every centimeter an agony that made her see stars. The phone remained just out of reach, its screen taunting her with that 3%. 2% now. Come on, she thought desperately. Come on, Lena. Move. Her brother's face flashed in her mind. Ethan, with his easy smile and protective instincts that had driven her crazy her whole life. He'd warned her about Marcus from the beginning, seen something she'd been too stupid, too in love, too desperate to believe someone could actually want her to notice. "There's something off about him, Lee," Ethan had said over coffee 6 months ago, his cop instincts making him frown into his cup. "The way he isolates you from your friends, how he always needs to know where you are. That's not love, that's control." She'd defended Marcus, made excuses. Eventually stopped answering Ethan's calls altogether because it was easier than hearing the truth she didn't want to face. Now, as darkness crept in at the edges of her vision, she would have given anything to hear her brother's voice one more time. With a surge of desperate strength, Lena lunged for the phone. Her broken body screamed in protest, a sound that came out as a strangled gasp. Her fingers closed around the device just as her strength gave out completely. She collapsed onto her back, phone clutched to her chest, breathing in ragged, insufficient gasps. 1% battery. Her hand shook violently as she unlocked the screen. The simple motion required concentration she barely possessed. The keyboard swam before her eyes, letters blurring and doubling. She blinked hard, trying to focus. Had to focus. Had to reach Ethan. She knew his number by heart, had known it since they were kids, since their mother made them memorize each other's contacts in case of emergency. This qualified. This definitely qualified as an emergency. Her thumb moved across the screen, muscle memory guiding her through the haze of pain and approaching unconsciousness. 555027. No, wait. Was it 127 or 217? The numbers swam. Her head felt full of cotton and broken glass. 127. Definitely 127. She was sure. Almost sure. 555027. She stared at the number, trying to make her brain work through the fog. It looked right, had to be right, no time to second guess. The battery icon flashed its final warning. Her fingers moved to the message field. What could she say? How could she compress the last 2 years of mistakes, of missed warnings, of slow-building horror into a text message? How could she explain that she'd finally seen the truth too late? The words came in fragments, barely coherent. Ethan, help me, please. Marcus, he hurt me bad. Can't breathe, ribs broken, I think. I'm scared, am dying. Apartment 4B2847, Morrison Street. Please come, please, I'm sorry for everything, I love you. Her thumb hovered over the send button. The screen dimmed, battery saving mode activating. Now or never. She pressed send. The message disappeared into the digital void just as the phone died in her hand, screen going black with a finality that felt prophetic. Lena let the useless device fall from her fingers. It clattered against the floor, the sound impossibly loud in the quiet apartment. She'd done it. Reached out. Help was coming. Ethan would get the message. He'd drop everything and come. That's what he did. He saved people. It was literally his job. He'd bust down the door if he had to, scoop her up in those strong arms, tell her it was going to be okay, in that certain way he had that made you actually believe it. She just had to hold on, just a little longer. The ceiling above her had a water stain shaped like a butterfly. Lena focused on it, using it as an anchor to consciousness. She'd noticed it the day she moved in, had meant to complain to the landlord. Never got around to it. Now it seemed important to memorize every detail. The way the edges feathered out, the darker center that almost looked three-dimensional. Funny how the brain worked when you were dying, cataloging butterflies while your life bled out onto discount hardwood. Time became meaningless. Seconds or minutes or hours passed. The strip of sunlight moved incrementally across the floor. The game show ended. Another began. Somewhere a dog barked, a door slammed. The building settled into evening routines, keys jingling in locks, the smell of someone's dinner wafting through the vents, footsteps overhead. Normal sounds. A normal day ending normally for everyone but her. Lena's breathing grew shallower. Each inhalation felt like swallowing ground glass. The pain had evolved beyond acute agony into something almost transcendent, a white noise that filled every cell of her body. Where are you, Ethan? Maybe he was already on his way. Maybe he'd gotten stuck in traffic. The precinct was across town, 20 minutes on a good day, 45 in rush hour. It was... What time was it? Late afternoon, early evening? The light suggested dusk approaching. Hurry, she thought. Please hurry. Her eyelids grew heavy. So heavy. Maybe if she closed them for just a moment. No, stay awake. Stay conscious. Help was coming. But the darkness was persuasive, pulling at her with gentle insistence. It would be so easy to let go, to stop fighting, to sink into that welcoming blackness where nothing hurt and nothing mattered. The butterfly on the ceiling began to move, wings slowly opening and closing. Lena watched it, mesmerized. Beautiful. Everything was becoming beautiful and distant and soft around the edges. She barely heard the footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, purposeful, moving fast. They stopped outside her door. Ethan. Relief flooded through her. He'd come. Of course he'd come. Big brother to the rescue, just like always. The doorknob rattled, locked. She'd known it would be. Marcus always locked it when he left, keeping her trapped like a bird in a cage. But Ethan was a cop. He'd have ways to get in. Kick it down maybe, or pick the lock, or... The door exploded inward. Not kicked. Not picked. Blown off its hinges with a force that made the entire frame splinter. The door crashed to the floor with a sound like thunder, and a figure filled the doorway. Not Ethan. Through her fading vision, Lena registered details in fractured snapshots. Tall, over 6 feet easily. Broad shoulders and a black coat that hung open over an expensive suit. Dark hair, dark eyes, a face carved from granite and shadow. Young, maybe 30, but carrying himself with the authority of someone much older. This wasn't her brother. This wasn't anyone she knew. The stranger's eyes swept the apartment in one efficient scan, cataloging and dismissing everything until they landed on her. He went absolutely still. For a moment they stared at each other across the wreckage of her studio apartment, The broken door, the blood-stained floor, the woman dying in the middle of it all. Then he moved. 3 long strides brought him to her side. He dropped to one knee, movements precise and controlled despite the obvious urgency. Up close, she could see his face clearly. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, eyes so dark they were almost black. He should have been handsome, would have been handsome, except for the absolute absence of warmth in his features. His expression never changed as he assessed her injuries. No shock, no horror, no pity, just cold, clinical evaluation. "Don't try to talk," he said. His voice matched his face, deep, controlled, absolutely devoid of emotion. Lena tried anyway. "Who?" "Later." He was already pulling out his phone, pressing a single speed dial number. Someone answered on the first ring. "I need a medical team at 2847 Morrison Street, apartment 4B, immediately. Female, mid-20s, severe trauma to torso and head, possible internal bleeding, broken ribs minimum." A pause. 5 minutes. No sirens. He ended the call and returned his attention to her. Those dark eyes moved over her systematically, taking inventory. His hand hovered over her ribs but didn't touch. "Who did this?" The question came out flat, factual, like he was asking for a weather report. Lena's lips moved, but no sound came out. The stranger leaned closer, close enough that she could smell expensive cologne mixing with something sharper, gun oil maybe, or leather. "Marcus," she managed to whisper. "His name is Marcus Delacroix." Something flickered in those dead eyes. Not emotion exactly, but recognition. He sat back slightly, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. "Delacroix," he repeated, and the name sounded different in his mouth. Significant. "You're involved with Marcus Delacroix." Was she? Had been, maybe. Not anymore. Never again. "Mistake," Lena whispered. "All a mistake." The stranger's expression remained unchanged, but she caught the way his hands flexed once, a quick clench and release that spoke of barely restrained violence. "Yes," he said quietly. "It was." Footsteps thundered up the stairs. Multiple people, moving fast. The stranger didn't turn, didn't even glance toward the door. He remained focused on her with that unnerving intensity. 3 men entered carrying medical equipment. They moved with military precision, spreading out around her without a word. One immediately began setting up an IV while another pulled out a blood pressure cuff. The third opened what looked like a tackle box full of medical supplies. Not paramedics. At least, not civilian ones. "BP's dropping," one of them said. "We need to move her now." "Stabilize her first," the stranger ordered. "I want her alive." I want her alive, not make sure she lives or save her. Just that cold, possessive statement, like she was a thing he'd decided to keep. Lena should have been terrified. This man, these men, they weren't here officially. No uniforms, no badges, no protocols. Just efficient, practiced violence barely contained beneath expensive suits. But fear required energy she didn't have. Instead, she felt a strange, detached curiosity. Who was he? Why had he come? And how had he gotten her message meant for Ethan? The medics worked fast. An IV needle slipped into her arm. Someone wrapped her ribs with practiced hands. A neck brace materialized from somewhere. Through it all, the stranger watched, his presence somehow both commanding and utterly still. "Ready to transport," one of the medics announced. "Do it." They lifted her onto a stretcher with surprising gentleness. Pain exploded through her body anyway, dragging a scream from her throat that emerged as barely a whimper. The stranger appeared beside the stretcher as they carried her toward the door, keeping pace with that same controlled grace. "Where?" Lena tried to ask. "Somewhere safe." He paused, then added with absolute certainty, "Marcus Delacroix will never touch you again." It wasn't a comfort or a promise. It was a statement of fact delivered with the same inflection as someone announcing the weather. Somehow, that made it more believable than any impassioned vow. They carried her down the stairs, moving quickly but smoothly. A black SUV idled at the curb, windows tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. No ambulance, no flashing lights, nothing to draw attention. As they loaded her into the vehicle, Lena caught a glimpse of her apartment building's facade. Mrs. Chen from 2A stood in her window, curtain pulled back, watching. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Then the old woman let the curtain fall and disappeared. No one had heard her screaming, or if they had, they'd chosen not to care. The stranger slid into the seat beside her as the doors closed. The driver didn't wait for instructions, just pulled smoothly into traffic. Inside, the SUV was all black leather and tinted glass, a mobile fortress. Lena's vision was fading again, the darkness she'd been fighting pulling her under with irresistible force. She struggled against it, trying to stay conscious, to understand what was happening. "Sleep," the stranger said. It wasn't permission, it was a command. "You're safe now." "Don't know you," Lena managed, words slurring. "Why did you come?" For the first time, something almost like emotion crossed his face. Not quite a smile, not quite regret. Something older and more complicated. "You sent me a message," he said quietly, pulling out a phone. Her text message displayed on the screen. "You asked for help." The numbers swam before her fading vision. 5550127. No, that was wrong. Ethan's number was 217, not 127. She'd been so sure, but pain and panic had scrambled the digits in her dying mind. "Wrong number," she whispered. "No." The stranger looked at her with those fathomless dark eyes. "I don't believe in accidents. You reached exactly who you were meant to reach." "Who are you?" "Adrian Voss." The name meant nothing to her, but the way he said it suggested it should, like announcing he was death or destiny or some other fundamental force. "Why?" she asked, consciousness slipping away fast now. "Why save me?" Adrian Voss was quiet for a long moment. The city streamed past outside the tinted windows, lights and life and a world that had kept spinning while she'd bled out on her floor. "Because," he finally said, so quietly she almost didn't hear, "someone once sent me a message too. And no one came." Lena wanted to ask more, to understand, but the darkness finally won. Her eyes closed and she sank into unconsciousness to the rhythm of the SUV's engine and the strange comfort of a killer's protection. She didn't see Adrian's hand flex again, that same barely controlled violence. Didn't see him pull out his phone and type a single text to a number labeled "Only Cleanup, Marcus Delacroix. I want everything." The response came within seconds. How deep? Adrian looked at the unconscious woman on the stretcher, broken and bleeding because she'd loved the wrong man, because she'd been convenient and controllable and alone. "All the way down," he typed back. "I want to know every breath he's taken for the last 5 years." He put the phone away and settled back in his seat, eyes fixed on nothing. Marcus Delacroix. The name rattled around in his memory, pulling up fragments. Delacroix Industries. A mid-level operation running on the edges of several larger territories. Arms dealing, money laundering, the usual portfolio. Not significant enough to be a threat, but connected enough to be useful. And now, apparently, connected to something that had made Adrian Voss break his own rules. He didn't save people, didn't play hero. That wasn't who he was or what he did. Adrian Voss was a ghost in expensive suits, the name whispered in back rooms and boardrooms when other names were too dangerous to speak. He was violence and power, and absolute control wrapped in civility so thin it was almost transparent. He didn't save dying women from locked apartments, except he just had. The message had come through during a meeting, a simple text from an unknown number appearing on his private cell that only a handful of people possessed. He should have deleted it unread, should have blocked the number and moved on with his evening. But something had stopped him. Some instinct that had kept him alive in a world where hesitation meant death told him to read it. "Ethan, help me, please, Marcus. He hurt me bad. Can't breathe, ribs broken, I think. I'm scared I'm dying. Apartment 4B2847, Morrison Street. Please come. Please, I'm sorry for everything. I love you." 7 messages from a stranger calling him by a name that wasn't his. A wrong number, a mistake. Except in Adrian's experience, there were no accidents. Not really, just patterns playing out. Dominoes falling in sequences too complex for most people to see. He'd looked at those messages and seen something that made him end his meeting abruptly, make 3 phone calls, and crossed the city at speeds that broke every traffic law. He'd seen a woman dying alone because she'd loved a man who saw her as property. He'd seen his mother. Adrian forced that thought away, burying it deep where it belonged. The past was dead. It had been dead for 15 years. This wasn't about her. This was about… what? Justice? Hardly. He wasn't in the justice business. Revenge, then? Not his revenge. Lena Carter was nothing to him. Principle? That word almost made him smile. Men like him didn't have principles. They had interests and assets and objectives. That was all. But as he watched Lena's chest rise and fall in shallow, painful breaths, Adrian acknowledged the truth he'd been avoiding. Sometimes, very rarely, men like him had weaknesses too. And his, apparently, was women who begged for help from brothers who weren't there. The SUV pulled into an underground garage descending 3 levels below street access. Security cameras tracked their progress, but the feeds would already be looped. By morning, there would be no record of this vehicle or its occupants ever being here. They'd arrived at one of Adrian's safe houses, a penthouse apartment in a building he owned through so many shell companies, even he sometimes forgot the chain of ownership. Sterile, secure, and utterly off the grid. The medical team moved Lena onto a proper bed in what had been designated as a medical room. Equipment hummed to life. Monitors, IV pumps, machines whose purposes Adrian didn't pretend to understand. He left them to their work, retreating to the main living area. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. From this height, it looked almost beautiful. The lights and life and desperate energy of 8 million people all fighting to survive another day. From up here, you couldn't see the blood and betrayal that made it all function. Adrian poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey and stood at the window, watching his city pulse and breathe. Somewhere out there, Marcus Delacroix was going about his evening, probably congratulating himself on putting his girlfriend in her place. His phone buzzed. The cleanup crew's preliminary report. Marcus Delacroix, age 28. Son of Richard Delacroix, CFO of Delacroix Industries. Junior executive in family business. No criminal record. Reputation as ambitious, aggressive, and politically connected. Known association with several syndicate-adjacent operations, but no confirmed involvement. Subject currently at the Meridian Club with associates. Drinking. Celebrating something. Celebrating. Of course he was. Adrian's grip on the whiskey glass tightened until his knuckles went white. He recognized the rage building in his chest. Cold, focused, the kind of anger that didn't burn hot but rather froze everything in its path. He should walk away. Should cut his losses, dump Lena at a hospital with an anonymous tip, and forget this ever happened. Getting involved with anything connected to the Delacroix family meant complications he didn't need. But he could still see her eyes, wide and green and full of pain as she'd whispered, "Wrong number," like it was an apology. Could still hear the desperate love in those messages meant for a brother who hadn't come. "I love you." 3 words that had made Adrian Voss break every rule he'd lived by for 15 years. Another text arrived, this one from his second-in-command, Victor. "Heard you canceled the Kozlov meeting. Everything okay?" Adrian considered lying, then decided against it. Victor had been with him too long to be easily fooled. Change of plans. May have a situation developing. What kind of situation? Adrian looked toward the medical room where doctors worked to save a woman he'd known for less than an hour. The complicated kind. Need backup? Stand by. I'll know more soon. He pocketed the phone and returned to his vigil at the window. The city continued its indifferent dance below. In a few hours, the clubs would close and the streets would empty, and everything would reset for another day of controlled chaos. But something had shifted tonight. Adrian felt it the way prey animals feel earthquakes before they hit. A fundamental wrongness in the usual patterns. By saving Lena Carter, he'd set something in motion. Something that couldn't be undone. Behind him, he heard movement. One of the doctors emerged from the medical room, stripping off latex gloves. "Status?" Adrian asked without turning. "Stable, for now. 3 broken ribs, severe bruising to the torso and face, minor internal bleeding that we've managed to control. No skull fracture, which is something of a miracle given the trauma. She's sedated. We'll know more in the next 12 hours. Will she live? Yes. though she'll need extended care and physical therapy. The ribs alone will take 6 to 8 weeks to fully heal. Adrian nodded once. Keep her sedated for now. I don't want her waking up confused or in pain. Understood. The doctor hesitated. Sir, given the nature of her injuries, there's going to be questions. The police won't be an issue, Adrian interrupted. Focus on keeping her alive. I'll handle everything else. The doctor knew better than to argue. He nodded and returned to the medical room, leaving Adrian alone with his city and his choices. The whiskey burned going down. Adrian finished it in one swallow and poured another, then pulled out his phone and opened a secure messaging app. I need a file on Richard Delacroix and Delacroix Industries. Everything. Financial, operational, personal. 7-year look-back minimum. The response was immediate. That's going to raise flags. The Delacroix family has connections to the Volkov organization. Adrian smiled without humor. The Volkov organization. One of 3 major syndicates controlling the city's underworld, ruthless, efficient, and perpetually at war with the other 2, including Adrian's own operation. I'm aware, he typed back. Do it anyway, quietly. This is about the woman? Word traveled fast in his organization. Good. Yes. Is she worth it? Adrian looked toward the medical room again. Was she worth it? Worth potentially igniting a war between organizations? Worth exposing himself to scrutiny he'd spent years avoiding? He thought of her broken body on that floor, the desperate hope in her eyes when she'd first seen him, the way she'd whispered wrong number, like she was apologizing for accidentally asking to be saved. Find out, he typed, and put the phone away. The night stretched ahead, full of possibilities and dangers. Somewhere in the city, Marcus Delacroix was drinking and laughing, secure in the belief that he'd successfully put an uppity woman in her place. Somewhere else, Richard Delacroix was conducting business, unaware that his son had just become a liability. And here, 40 stories above the streets, a man who'd spent 15 years becoming something barely human stood guard over a stranger he'd chosen to save. Adrian didn't believe in accidents or fate or divine intervention. He believed in power and leverage and the cold mathematics of survival. But he also believed that sometimes, very rarely, the universe offered you a chance to be someone different, someone better, someone who saved instead of destroyed. He'd taken that chance tonight. Now he'd see what it cost him. Comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Lena and Adrian's story travels across the world. Dawn broke over the city in shades of gray and gold, but 40 stories up, the penthouse remained dark. Adrian hadn't slept. He'd stood at those floor-to-ceiling windows all night, watching the city cycle through its rhythms while his mind worked through scenarios and contingencies. The whiskey bottle sat empty on the marble countertop. Behind him, the medical room door opened with a soft click. Doctor. Sarah Chen emerged, still in her scrubs, dark circles under her eyes testimony to her own sleepless night. She'd been Adrian's personal physician for 3 years now, long enough to know when to speak and when silence was safer. She's awake, Sarah said quietly. Adrian turned from the window. Conscious or coherent? Both, asking questions. Sarah paused, choosing her words carefully. She wants to know where she is, who you are, why she's here. What did you tell her? That she's safe, that she nearly died, that someone brought her here to recover. Sarah met his eyes. She's scared, Adrian. Not of you specifically, but of everything. She doesn't understand what's happening. Adrian checked his watch. 6:15 in the morning. Marcus Delacroix had left the Meridian Club at 2:30, drunk and accompanied by 2 associates to a private penthouse in the Diamond District. He was probably still asleep, blissfully unaware that his world was about to collapse. I'll talk to her, Adrian said. Sarah didn't move. She's fragile, physically and emotionally. Whatever you're planning isn't your concern. Adrian's voice remained flat, but Sarah had worked for him long enough to recognize the warning beneath the calm. She nodded once and stepped aside. The medical room had been designed to look less clinical than it was. Soft lighting, comfortable furniture, walls painted in soothing neutrals instead of institutional white. But the equipment clustered around the bed told the real story. Monitors tracking vitals, IV stands, oxygen ready if needed. Lena sat propped against pillows, her face a roadmap of bruises in various stages of healing. Someone had cleaned the blood away and dressed her in soft cotton pajamas. Her left eye was swollen nearly shut, her lips split and puffy. The bruising around her throat formed a pattern Adrian recognized instantly. Fingerprints, where Marcus had squeezed hard enough to leave impressions. She tracked him with her good eye as he entered, her body tensing despite the obvious pain the movement caused. "You're Adrian Voss," she said. Her voice came out rough, damaged. "The doctor told me your name." "I am." He took a seat at the chair positioned near the bed, maintaining a non-threatening distance. "How are you feeling?" A laugh escaped her, bitter and broken. "Like I got hit by a truck. Which is basically what happened, except the truck was my boyfriend and he used his fists instead of a bumper." "Ex-boyfriend," Adrian corrected, "unless you're planning to go back to him." Lena's expression shuddered. "I'm not. I can't. She trailed off, looking away. "I don't even know where to start." "Start with what you remember." She was quiet for a long moment, fingers twisting in the blanket covering her lap. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I remember being on the floor, bleeding, thinking I was going to die alone in that apartment." Her good eye found his again. "I texted my brother, at least I thought I texted my brother, but you came instead. You transposed two numbers, 127 instead of 217, a wrong number that saved my life." She shook her head slightly, wincing at the pain it caused. "The doctor said you kicked down my door, that you brought your own medical team, that you've been keeping me safe." Her voice took on an edge. "Why?" It was the question Adrian had been asking himself all night. He had answers, tactical ones, strategic ones, even philosophical ones if he cared to get abstract about it. But sitting here facing this woman who'd survived something she shouldn't have, none of them felt adequate. "Because someone needed to," he said finally. "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now." Lena studied him with that one clear eye, and Adrian had the uncomfortable sensation of being seen in a way he usually avoided. Most people looked at him and saw what he wanted them to see: power, control, the carefully constructed image of a successful businessman with shadowy connections. But Lena was looking deeper, trying to understand the man who'd appeared out of nowhere to save a stranger. "You're not a cop," she said, "or a paramedic, or any kind of official rescue person. The doctor called you sir like you're her boss, and she's terrified of you even though she tries to hide it." Lena paused. "So who are you, really? What do you do?" Adrian considered lying. It would be easy. Tell her he was a businessman. Maybe throw in some vague nonsense about private security consulting. She'd accept it because she wanted to believe her rescuer was one of the good guys. But something about the directness of her question, the way she refused to look away despite her fear, made him choose truth instead. "I run an organization that operates outside legal boundaries," he said. "We control territory, manage assets, and eliminate threats. Most people would call it organized crime. I prefer to think of it as alternative governance." He waited for her reaction, the shock, the horror, the inevitable retreat into fear. Instead, Lena just nodded slowly. "So you're a criminal?" "By most definitions, yes." "And Marcus?" Her voice hardened on the name. "What is he?" "Connected to one." Adrian pulled out his phone and brought up the file his people had compiled overnight. Marcus Delacroix is the youngest son of Richard Delacroix, CFO of Delacroix Industries. On paper, they're a legitimate shipping and logistics company. In reality, they launder money for the Volkov organization, one of 3 major syndicates controlling this city. Lena's face had gone pale beneath the bruising. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know anything about that." "I believe you. Marcus kept you isolated for a reason. Easier to control someone who doesn't have the full picture." "How long have you known about him?" "I became aware of Marcus Delacroix approximately 8 hours ago, when you sent me a text message containing his name." Adrian scrolled through the file. "My people have been investigating since. What they've found is concerning." "Concerning how?" Adrian debated how much to tell her. Too much information and she'd panic. Too little and she'd be vulnerable. He settled on the essential truth. "Marcus has been using you, Lena. Not just physically and emotionally, but legally. Your name appears on documents establishing shell corporations, bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, property deeds for commercial real estate. You've been signing things, haven't you? Papers Marcus brought home from work, said they were routine, maybe gave you wine first to make it all seem romantic? The color drained completely from Lena's face. Oh my God. Do you remember what you signed? No. I remember signing things, but I never read them. Marcus said they were boring corporate documents, that I was just being listed as a reference or something. He made it seem like no big deal, and I trusted him. Her voice broke. What have I done? You've been made an accessory to money laundering, fraud, and possibly racketeering. If the FBI ever investigates Delacroix Industries, your name will come up. A lot. Lena pressed her hands to her face, then immediately regretted it as the pressure sent pain radiating through her damaged features. I'm going to prison. No, Adrian said with certainty. You're not. How can you possibly? Because I won't allow it. He put the phone away and leaned forward slightly. Listen to me, Lena. Marcus Delacroix made a mistake when he decided you were disposable. He should have killed you or left you alone. Instead, he left you alive but broken, confident you'd be too afraid or too ashamed to do anything about it. That mistake gave me an opening. An opening for what? Adrian smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. To destroy him. Lena stared at him, a complicated mix of emotions playing across her damaged face. Fear, yes, but also something that looked almost like hope. Why would you do that? She asked. You don't know me. Don't owe me anything. And if Marcus is connected to this Volkov organization, going after him must be dangerous even for you. It is, Adrian admitted. The Volkovs and my organization have maintained a tense peace for 3 years. Attacking someone under their protection could reignite hostilities. Then why risk it? Adrian stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city was fully awake now, morning traffic snarling the streets below. Somewhere down there, Marcus Delacroix was probably having coffee, checking his phone, getting ready for another day of business as usual. Because men like Marcus operate on the assumption that they're untouchable, Adrian said quietly, that their connections and money and family name will protect them no matter what they do. They hurt people because they can, because no one has the power or the will to stop them. He turned back to face her. I have both. Lena was quiet for a long moment. This is about more than just me, isn't it? Perceptive. Adrian filed that away. Lena Carter was sharper than she appeared, even damaged and drugged and traumatized. Yes, he admitted. Someone hurt you, or hurt someone you cared about. Adrian didn't respond, but his silence was answer enough. Lena nodded slowly. Okay, so what happens now? Now you recover. Dr. Chen will monitor your progress. You'll stay here where it's secure. And then? Then we discuss what you want to do about Marcus Delacroix. What I want? Lena laughed, the sound edged with hysteria. I want to never see him again. I want to forget he exists. I want to go back to 6 months ago and listen to my brother when he told me Marcus was dangerous. Your brother, Adrian said. Ethan Carter. Detective with the Metropolitan Police, Vice Division. Clean record, good reputation, known for being protective of his little sister. He paused. He's been calling you for 3 days, 12 missed calls, 8 voicemails. Lena's expression crumpled. He can't know about this. If he finds out what Marcus did, he'll do something stupid. He'll go after him and Marcus's family will destroy his career or worse. Marcus's family is going to have bigger problems soon. You're really going to go after them? All of them? I'm going to gather information, Adrian corrected. What I do with that information depends on what I find and what you decide you want. What I want is to feel safe again, to not wake up terrified, to not see his face every time I close my eyes. That, Adrian said, I can definitely arrange. A knock on the door interrupted them. Victor entered without waiting for permission, a liberty only he was allowed. He was a bear of a man, 6'4", and built like a boxer, with a scar running from his left temple to his jaw, courtesy of a knife fight in Moscow 15 years ago. We have a problem, Victor said in accented English, his gaze flickering to Lena for a brief moment before returning to Adrian. Explain. Marcus Delacroix reported a break-in at 2847 Morrison Street last night, filed a police report claiming his girlfriend disappeared and her apartment was vandalized. He's playing the concerned boyfriend, saying he's worried she's been kidnapped. Adrian's expression didn't change, but Lena saw his hands flex once. That same barely controlled violence she'd noticed the night before. Clever, Adrian said. Get ahead of the narrative. If she turns up claiming he attacked her, he's already established an alternative story. There's more. He's offering a $10,000 reward for information leading to her safe return. It's already on the local news. Lena made a small sound of disbelief. He's pretending to care? After what he did? Victor looked at her directly for the first time. Men like Marcus Delacroix are very good at pretending. It's how they operate. They show the world one face while hiding the monster underneath. Victor, Adrian said quietly, a warning in his tone. The big man nodded and turned back to his boss. What do you want to do? Adrian was silent for a moment, thinking. Lena watched the calculation happen behind those dark eyes, weighing variables, assessing risks, planning moves several steps ahead. How much coverage is the story getting? Local news only, but it's building momentum. The angle is concerned boyfriend searches for missing girlfriend. Women are eating it up on social media. Of course they are. Adrian's voice dripped with contempt. Contact our people at Channel 7. I want Marcus Delacroix's financials leaked to their investigative unit. Bank records, transaction histories, everything that shows his connection to illegal activities. Make it look like it came from an anonymous whistleblower. That'll blow back on the girl, Victor said, jerking his chin toward Lena. Her name is all over those documents. Which is why we're going to establish her as a victim before the story breaks. Get me a meeting with Detective Elizabeth Morrison, Internal Affairs. She owes us a favor. She wants you for getting her brother out of that mess in Atlantic City. You really want to cash that in on this? Yes. Victor nodded and pulled out his phone, already making calls as he left the room. Lena struggled to process what she'd just heard. You're going to expose Marcus's crimes by exposing mine? You didn't commit any crimes. You signed documents under false pretenses while in a coercive relationship. That makes you a victim, not a criminal. Adrian sat back down in the chair. But we need to establish that narrative before Marcus can spin it another way. And this detective you mentioned will interview you, document your injuries, and file a report that predates Marcus's bullshit missing person claim. It establishes the timeline in your favor. But what if she arrests me? What if she won't? Detective Morrison is very good at her job, and part of that job is recognizing when the system is being manipulated. She'll see exactly what Marcus is doing. Lena wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this man who'd appeared out of nowhere had everything under control. But trust had nearly gotten her killed, and she wasn't sure she had any left to give. What if it doesn't work? She asked quietly. What if Marcus convinces everyone I'm the criminal and he's the victim? Adrian's expression went cold. Then I'll stop playing by society's rules and start playing by mine. Marcus Delacroix will disappear and no one will ever find him. The casual way he said it, like he was discussing the weather, made Lena's blood run cold. This was the reality of who Adrian Voss was. Not a hero, not a savior, just a different kind of monster who happened to be pointing his violence in a direction she agreed with. You've done that before, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes. How many times? Does it matter? Lena thought about that. Did it matter? Adrian had saved her life, was actively working to protect her future. Did his past sins outweigh his present actions? I don't know, she admitted. Everything is so complicated now. It always was. You just didn't see it. Adrian stood. Get some rest. Detective Morrison will be here this afternoon. Dr. Chen will help you prepare. Document your injuries. Go over your statement. Be honest about everything Marcus did. Don't downplay it to protect him or yourself. I won't. Good. He started toward the door, then paused. Lena, I need to know something. When this is over, when Marcus is no longer a threat and the legal issues are resolved, what do you want? What do you mean? Do you want to go back to your old life? Your apartment? Your job? Your routine? Or do you want something different? Lena looked down at her hands, at the IV still taped to her arm, at the bruises that would fade but never really disappear. I don't know if I can go back, she said quietly. That person who trusted Marcus, who believed his lies, who ignored every warning sign. I don't want to be her anymore. Then don't be. Adrian's voice was firm. You get to choose who you become next. That's the gift of surviving something that should have killed you. You get to rebuild from scratch. He left her alone with that thought. The morning passed in a blur of medical checks, medications, and quiet conversations with Dr. Chen. The physician was kind but professional, documenting every bruise, every broken bone, every mark Marcus had left on Lena's body. The process was humiliating and painful, but Lena endured it because Adrian was right. She needed proof. Detective Elizabeth Morrison arrived at 2 o'clock sharp. She was younger than Lena expected, maybe mid-30s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that reminded her of Ethan. She entered the medical room alone, carrying a digital recorder and a notepad. "Miss Carter," she said, her voice professionally neutral, "I'm Detective Morrison, Internal Affairs. I understand you have information regarding criminal activities within the Metropolitan Police Department's jurisdiction." Lena glanced at Adrian, who stood near the window. He nodded once. "Not exactly," Lena said. "I have information about crimes committed against me. The person who committed them is Marcus Delacroix, and I believe he has connections to organized crime." Detective Morrison's expression didn't change, but Lena saw something flicker in her eyes. Interest, maybe, or recognition. "I'm going to record this conversation," Morrison said, setting up the device. "You can stop at any time. You have the right to have an attorney present." "I don't need an attorney. I need someone to listen." "Then I'm listening." Lena told her everything. The whirlwind romance, the gradual isolation, the escalating control. The moment when Marcus's mask had finally slipped completely. She described the beating in clinical detail, the way he'd stood over her afterward, the sound of the deadbolt locking her in to die. Morrison took notes, asked clarifying questions, never once looked shocked or sympathetic. Just professional, thorough, relentless in her pursuit of facts. "The documents you signed," Morrison said. "Do you have copies?" "No. Marcus always took them with him." "But you remember signing them?" "Yes. At least a dozen times over the past 6 months. And he never explained what they were? He said they were corporate paperwork. That listing me was a formality." Morrison made another note. "Ms. Carter, I need to be direct with you. If your name appears on documents associated with money laundering or fraud, you could face criminal charges." "I know." Lena's voice was steady. "But I signed those papers because Marcus manipulated me. I was in a coercive relationship. I didn't know what I was really signing." "Can you prove coercion?" Lena gestured to her face, her ribs, her body. "Is this not enough proof?" "It's proof of assault. Proving coercion regarding the documents is more complicated." "Which is where I come in," Adrian said, speaking for the first time since Morrison arrived. The detective turned to face him. "Mr. Voss, I was wondering when you'd insert yourself into this conversation." "You've been investigating Delacroix Industries for 3 months," Adrian said. It wasn't a question. Morrison's eyes narrowed. "That's confidential information." "So is the fact that your investigation has stalled because Richard Delacroix has political connections that keep interfering with warrants and subpoenas? You need a way in. Lena gives you that." "I don't use victims as bait." "I'm not suggesting you do. I'm suggesting you recognize that Lena is a witness to criminal activity, and her testimony could break your case open." Morrison looked between them, clearly weighing her options. "What exactly are you offering, Mr. Voss?" "Protection for Lena, access to documents and financial records you can't legally obtain, testimony that will stand up in court." "In exchange for?" "Immunity for Ms. Carter on any charges related to documents she signed under duress, and your assurance that Marcus Delacroix will face consequences for what he did to her." "I can't guarantee immunity. That's up to the DA's office." "But you can recommend it, and given your relationship with Assistant DA Chen, I imagine your recommendations carry significant weight." Morrison's jaw tightened. "You seem to know a lot about my professional relationships. I make it my business to know things. And I make it my business to put criminals in prison, Mr. Voss, including ones who operate in gray areas and call themselves businessmen." Adrian smiled. "Then we have a common goal. For today, at least." The detective stood, gathering her recorder and notepad. "Miss Carter, I'm going to need you to come to the station within the next 48 hours to make an official statement. Can you do that?" Lena nodded. "Yes." "Good. In the meantime, stay somewhere safe. If Marcus Delacroix contacts you, do not respond. Document everything but do not engage. He won't be able to contact her, Adrian said. She's under my protection. Morrison gave him a long look. Protective custody with a known criminal. That's a new one. Better than protective custody in a system Marcus's family can manipulate. Morrison didn't argue. She handed Lena a business card. My direct line. Call me if you remember anything else or if the situation changes. After she left, Lena slumped back against the pillows, exhausted. That was intense. You did well, Adrian said. She doesn't trust you. No one trusts me. It's safer that way. Do you trust her? Adrian considered the question. I trust that Detective Morrison wants to take down corrupt operations within her department. Whether that trust extends beyond mutual interest remains to be seen. Lena closed her eyes, suddenly overwhelmed. This is really happening. I'm really doing this. You can still walk away, Adrian said quietly. I can arrange for you to disappear. New identity, new city. Enough money to start over. Marcus would never find you. And he'd never face consequences. No, he wouldn't. Lena opened her eyes and looked at Adrian. Would you still go after him, even if I left? Probably. Why? Because men like Marcus don't stop. If it's not you, it'll be someone else. Another woman who trusts the wrong person. Another victim who dies alone on a dirty floor. You can't save everyone. No, Adrian agreed. But I can save some, and that has to be enough. Lena understood then. This wasn't really about her. It was about all the people Adrian hadn't been able to save. All the times he'd arrived too late or not at all. She was a chance at redemption he probably didn't even realize he was seeking. I'm not walking away, she said firmly. Marcus needs to answer for what he did. Not just to me, but to everyone he's hurt. Adrian nodded. Then we move forward. What happens next? Next, we wait for Marcus to make his next move. He's playing the concerned boyfriend now, but eventually he'll slip. They always do. And when he does, we'll be ready. But neither of them knew that across town, in a penthouse office overlooking the financial district, Richard Delacroix was receiving a very disturbing phone call. A call that would change everything. Your son has become a liability, the voice on the other end said, cold, Russian accented. Absolutely certain. Marcus is young, Richard said carefully. Impulsive sometimes, but he's learning. He's sloppy. The situation with the girl, it draws attention. Attention we cannot afford. I'll handle it. I'll handle him. See that you do, or we will handle it for you. The line went dead. Richard Delacroix sat in his leather chair, looking out at the city he'd spent 30 years learning to control. His youngest son had always been the difficult one, brilliant but reckless, ambitious but undisciplined, and now, apparently, stupid enough to leave a witness alive. Richard picked up his phone and dialed. His head of security answered on the first ring. Find the girl, Richard said. Find her before anyone else does. And bring her to me. The call came at 3 in the morning, 4 days after Lena had first opened her eyes in Adrian's safe house. She'd been sleeping fitfully, the way she always did now, half awake, hypervigilant, waiting for danger that never came. When her borrowed phone buzzed on the nightstand, she jolted upright despite the pain it sent shooting through her healing ribs. Unknown number. Her thumb hovered over the decline button, then stopped. Unknown didn't mean dangerous, not anymore. Not here. She answered, Hello? Lena. The voice hit her like a physical blow. Thank God. I've been looking everywhere for you. Marcus. Her entire body went rigid. The phone felt suddenly heavy, burning against her palm like a brand. 4 days of safety, of healing, of believing she might actually survive this, shattered in an instant by the sound of his voice. How did you get this number? Her own voice came out steadier than she felt. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you're okay. Baby, I've been so worried. The police said your apartment was vandalized, that you disappeared. I thought... He paused, and she could almost see him running a hand through his hair, playing the concerned boyfriend. I thought something terrible had happened to you. Lena's free hand clenched in the sheets. Something terrible did happen to me, Marcus. You happened to me. Silence on the other end. Then, I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You beat me. You broke my rib. You left me to die on my apartment floor. Lena, that's... His voice shifted, took on a soothing quality that used to work on her. Baby, I think you might be confused. Have you seen a doctor? Hit your head, maybe? Because what you're describing never happened. The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced. A month ago, it might have worked. She might have questioned her own memory, wondered if the trauma had twisted the truth. But she'd seen the medical reports, seen the photographs Chen had taken, had 3 broken ribs and a face full of bruises that told a story Marcus couldn't rewrite. I'm not confused, she said, and I'm not coming back. Come back? Marcus laughed, the sound wrong, too sharp, edges showing through the facade. Who said anything about coming back? I just want to make sure you're safe. Where are you? Before Lena could respond, her door opened. Adrian stood in the doorway, fully dressed despite the hour. He'd probably been awake, probably heard her phone ring. His eyes met hers, a silent question in them. She nodded once. Adrian crossed the room in 3 strides, holding out his hand. Lena passed him the phone. Marcus Delacroix, Adrian said, his voice flat and cold. This conversation is over. Who the hell is this? Marcus's smooth persona cracked completely. Put Lena back on. Now. No. Listen, I don't know who you are or what lies she's told you, but Lena is my girlfriend, and she's not well. She needs help. What she needs, Adrian interrupted, is to never hear your voice again. Lose this number. In fact, lose any thought of contacting her at all. Consider this your only warning. Marcus's laugh was harsh, ugly. A warning? Do you have any idea who my family is? Who I'm connected to? The Volkov organization. Yes, I'm aware. The silence that followed was thick with shock. Lena watched Adrian's face, saw nothing there but cold certainty. You're making a mistake, Marcus said finally, his voice low and dangerous. A big one. Lena belongs to me. Whatever you think you're doing, playing hero or white knight or whatever, it ends badly for you. No, Adrian said, it ends badly for you. Because unlike Lena, I'm not afraid of your connections, or your family name, or the organizations you hide behind. Touch her again, contact her again, even think about her again, and I will dismantle everything you've built. Your reputation, your business, your life. All of it. You can't... Adrian ended the call and powered down the phone completely. He handed it back to Lena, his expression unreadable. He'll try again, she said quietly. I know, which is why tomorrow we're moving you. Moving me where? Somewhere even more secure. Marcus knowing this number means someone leaked information. I need to identify the source before we can proceed. Lena pulled her knees to her chest, wincing at the discomfort. He sounded so normal at first, so concerned, like the Marcus I fell in love with. That's the mask, Adrian said, sitting in the chair beside her bed. The person you fell in love with never existed. He was a construct designed to gain your trust and compliance. What you just heard was the real Marcus, the one who sees you as property he's lost control of. I knew that. Intellectually, I knew that. But hearing his voice, she trailed off, fighting tears. I hate that part of me still reacts to him. That's not weakness. That's trauma. It takes time to rewire the patterns abuse creates. Lena looked at him, this man who spoke about trauma like he understood it from experience. How do you know so much about this? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. My mother was in a relationship like yours, except no one saved her. By the time I was old enough to try, it was too late. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. But the way he said it, flat, emotionless, suggested it wasn't long enough. Is that why you saved me? Because of her? Partially. Adrian stood, moving to the window. Dawn was starting to break, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. But also because I've spent 15 years building an empire on violence and control. Sometimes I wonder if I'm any different from the men I claim to oppose. You are, Lena said firmly. You saved me when you had no reason to. Marcus hurt me because he could. That's the difference. Adrian turned to look at her, something complicated passing across his features. You have more faith in me than I deserve. Maybe. Or maybe you just need someone to see the parts of yourself you try to hide. Before Adrian could respond, Victor appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. "We have a situation," he said. Adrian's demeanor shifted instantly, becoming colder, more focused. "Explain." Delacroix Security has been asking questions, bribing doormen, checking hotel registries, running facial recognition scans on city cameras. They're looking for her. "How aggressive?" "Very. They hit 3 of our known properties in the last hour. Didn't find anything, but they're getting bolder." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Richard Delacroix is moving faster than I anticipated." "There's more," Victor said. "Our contact in the Volkov organization reached out. They've issued a directive. Find the girl. Neutralize anyone protecting her. This has gone above Marcus. His father is involved now, and he's calling in favors." Lena felt ice spread through her veins. What does neutralize mean? Victor's eyes flicked to her, then back to Adrian. "In this context, kill." "They're going to kill me?" Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "They're going to try," Adrian corrected, "but they'll have to go through me first, and that's significantly harder than they're anticipating." "Adrian, maybe I should just—" Lena started, but he cut her off. "Don't. Whatever you're about to suggest, turning yourself in, running away, sacrificing yourself to protect me, don't. That's not how this works." "How does it work then?" "We go on the offensive. Victor, gather the team. I want full tactical deployment. And get me a meeting with Dmitry Volkov." Victor's eyebrows rose. "You're going directly to the top?" "Richard Delacroix is operating under Volkov protection. If I want to neutralize that protection, I need to talk to Dmitry himself. He's not going to be happy about you stepping on his organization's toes. I don't need him happy. I need him reasonable." Adrian turned back to Lena. "Get dressed. Comfortable clothes, nothing restrictive. We're moving in 20 minutes. After both men left, Lena sat in the pre-dawn silence, trying to process everything. 4 days ago, she'd been dying on her apartment floor. Now she was at the center of a conflict between criminal organizations, protected by a man she barely knew, wanted dead by people she'd never met. This wasn't how life was supposed to work. Normal people didn't end up in situations like this. But then again, she'd stopped being normal the moment she'd sent that wrong number text message. Or maybe even before that, the moment she'd ignored Ethan's warnings and chosen to believe Marcus's lies. She dressed slowly, her ribs protesting every movement. Dr. Chen had cleared her for limited mobility, but everything still hurt. The bruises on her face had faded from purple-black to yellow-green, a roadmap of violence written on her skin. In the mirror, a stranger stared back. Same green eyes, same brown hair, but different somehow. Harder. More aware. The innocent woman who'd fallen for Marcus Delacroix's charm was gone, replaced by someone who understood that the world was darker and more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. 20 minutes later, she found herself in another black SUV, sandwiched between Adrian and Victor. 2 more vehicles flanked them, full of men she didn't recognize but who moved with the same predatory grace as Adrian. "Where are we going?" she asked. "The Sentinel," Adrian replied. "One of my primary holdings. 40-story building, full security, discreet staff. No one gets in without my approval." "And Dmitry Volkov? When does that meeting happen?" "Already arranged. He'll meet us at the Sentinel in 3 hours." Lena noticed Adrian's hands, the way they rested calmly in his lap. No tension, no fidgeting. Either he was exceptionally good at hiding his nerves, or he genuinely wasn't afraid of meeting with the head of a major criminal syndicate. "Have you met him before?" she asked. "Twice. Once when I was establishing my territory 5 years ago, and once when we negotiated the current peace agreement." Adrian glanced at her. "Dmitry Volkov is not a good man, Lena. Don't mistake politeness for kindness, or civility for morality." "I could say the same about you." Adrian's lips quirked in what might have been a smile. "Fair point." The Sentinel turned out to be exactly what it sounded like, a gleaming tower of steel and glass in the heart of the financial district. They entered through an underground garage, multiple security checkpoints clearing their path. The elevator required both a key card and a fingerprint scan to access the upper floors. Adrian's penthouse occupied the entire 40th floor. Where the safe house had been functional and sterile, this space was opulent, floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic city views, modern furniture in blacks and grays, Art that probably cost more than Lena's yearly salary decorating the walls. Your room is through there, Adrian said, indicating a hallway. Everything you need should be provided. If it's not, ask. Lena wanted to explore, to process this new level of wealth and power, but exhaustion pulled at her. The adrenaline from Marcus's call had faded, leaving her drained. She'd just reached her assigned room when she heard voices from the main living area. Against her better judgment, she crept back to listen. Too risky, Victor was saying. Meeting with Volkov puts you in his territory, under his rules. He's coming here. Even worse, you're showing him your primary stronghold. He already knows where it is, Victor. Dmitry Volkov makes it his business to know everything about everyone who operates in this city. Then what's the play? What do you expect to accomplish? Adrian was quiet for a moment. I'm going to offer him something he wants more than Richard Delacroix's continued patronage. What could possibly be worth more than a money laundering operation that's been profitable for a decade? Information about the Chen Syndicate's expansion plans. Victor swore in Russian. That's suicide. The Chens will see it as betrayal. Only if they find out, and they won't, because we're going to be very careful about how this information is delivered. You're playing both sides against each other, using Lena as the catalyst. I'm using Richard Delacroix's mistake as leverage. There's a difference. And when Dmitry asks why you care so much about one woman, I'll tell him the truth, that Marcus Delacroix's sloppiness represents a liability to everyone, that protecting Lena protects the larger ecosystem of interests we all rely on. Lena heard footsteps approaching and quickly retreated to her room, closing the door quietly. She sat on the bed, mind racing. Adrian was playing a game so complex she could barely follow it, using pieces and strategies she didn't understand. And she was right in the middle of it. The next 3 hours passed in tense anticipation. Dr. Chen arrived to check Lena's injuries and change her bandages. The physician worked in professional silence, documenting progress with the same thoroughness she'd shown before. You're healing well, Chen said finally. Better than expected, actually. The ribs should be fully mended in another month. And the bruises? Fading. Another week and you'll look almost normal. Chen paused. Physically, at least. The psychological trauma takes longer. I know. Chen packed up her medical bag. Mr. Voss asked me to make sure you understand what's happening today. The meeting with Dmitry Volkov, it's dangerous. Not physically, necessarily, but politically. Everything you say, every reaction you have, will be analyzed and used. I'm just supposed to sit there and look traumatized? You're supposed to be yourself. That's what Adrian needs. Authenticity. Dmitry Volkov can spot a performance from a mile away, but genuine emotion, genuine trauma, that he'll believe. After Chen left, Lena stood at the window, looking out at the city. Somewhere down there, Marcus was going about his day, probably confident his father would fix this problem the way he fixed everything. Somewhere else, Ethan was working his shift, still calling her phone, still leaving messages she couldn't bear to listen to. And here she was, 40 stories up, waiting to meet a crime lord who might decide her fate with a word. At exactly noon, the elevator chimed. Lena heard voices, Adrian's controlled tone, and another voice, deeper, with a Russian accent that reminded her of Victor but carried more weight. Mr. Voss, your building is as impressive as I remember. Mr. Volkov, thank you for coming. How could I refuse such an intriguing invitation? You mentioned a matter of mutual interest. Lena's door opened. Adrian stood there, his expression unreadable. It's time. She followed him into the living area, where a man stood silhouetted against the windows. Dmitry Volkov was not what she expected. She'd imagined someone old, weathered by years of violence. Instead, he appeared to be in his early 50s, well-dressed in a charcoal suit, silver threading his dark hair. He looked like a successful businessman, not a criminal mastermind. But his eyes, cold gray, calculating, told the real story. Ms. Carter, Dmitry said, his accent making her name sound foreign. I've heard much about you in the past few days. I wish I could say the same, Lena replied, surprised by her own steadiness. Dmitry smiled. Honesty. How refreshing. He turned to Adrian. She is not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more, broken, given what my associate's son did to her. He gestured to the seating area. Shall we? They sat, Adrian and Lena on one sofa, Dmitri across from them. Victor stood near the door, a silent sentinel. The air felt thick with tension, every word weighted with implications Lena could only partially grasp. I assume you know why Marcus Delacroix beat Ms. Carter nearly to death, Adrian said, skipping any pretense of small talk. I know what Richard told me, that the girl was unstable, threatened to expose business secrets, became violent when confronted. All lies, Lena said, anger overriding her fear. Marcus beat me because I questioned him, because I was starting to see through his control. Dmitri studied her with those cold eyes. You signed documents, made yourself complicit in activities you claim not to understand. I signed papers my boyfriend asked me to sign. I trusted him. A mistake. Yes, one I'll never make again. Something flickered in Dmitri's expression, not quite approval, but acknowledgement. You have spirit. I can see why Adrian chose to protect you. I protect her because Marcus Delacroix is sloppy, Adrian said. He left a witness alive, filed a false police report, drew attention to operations that function best in shadow. His father is scrambling to clean up the mess, but the damage is done. And you believe this justifies interference with Volkov business? I believe Richard Delacroix is a liability you can't afford. The police are already investigating Delacroix Industries. When they find what Lena signed, and they will, it all traces back to your money laundering operation. Dmitri's expression didn't change, but Lena felt the temperature in the room drop several degrees. That sounds very much like a threat, Mr. Voss. It's an observation. The question is whether you want to control the narrative or let Richard Delacroix's incompetence destroy a profitable arrangement. Dmitri was quiet for a long moment, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. What do you propose? Cut the Delacroix family loose, pull your protection. Let the legal system handle Richard and Marcus as they deserve. In exchange for? I give you advance intelligence on the Chen Syndicate's expansion into the shipping district. Full details, locations, personnel, timelines, everything you'd need to shut them down before they establish a foothold. Lena saw Victor stiffen slightly. This was the play Adrian had mentioned, trading information for protection withdrawal. Dangerous, delicate, requiring trust between parties who fundamentally didn't trust anyone. Dmitri smiled slowly. You're asking me to choose between a decade-long business relationship and intelligence that may or may not be accurate. The intelligence is accurate, and the Delacroix relationship is already compromised. I'm offering you a way to come out ahead. By throwing Richard to the wolves. Richard threw himself to the wolves when he failed to control his son. I'm just pointing out where the wolves are gathering. Dmitri stood, walking to the window. He looked out at the city. Silent for so long, Lena began to worry the negotiation had failed. Marcus Delacroix is a problem, Dmitri said finally. This is true, but problems can be solved many ways. Why should I trust your solution over one of my own? Because my solution lets you maintain plausible deniability, Adrian replied. The Delacroix family falls due to legal pressure, not Volkov betrayal. Your other business relationships remain intact. You look clean. And what do you get out of this arrangement? Adrian glanced at Lena. She goes free, no charges, no threats, no revenge from the Delacroix family. She rebuilds her life without looking over her shoulder. Dmitri turned from the window, his gray eyes moving between them. You care for this woman. I care about justice. Liar. But Dmitri said it almost fondly. You care for her specifically. I can see it in the way you position yourself between us, the way your hand flexes when I look at her too long. This is personal for you. Adrian didn't deny it. Does it matter? It makes you predictable. Predictability is a weakness. Or a strength. You know I'll follow through because my investment is personal. Dmitri considered this, then nodded slowly. I will think about your proposal, but I want the Chen intelligence first. Proof of its value. Half now, half when you withdraw Delacroix protection. All now, or no deal? Adrian shook his head. That leaves me with no leverage. Half now. It will be enough to verify accuracy. They stared at each other, two predators measuring strength and resolve. Finally, Dmitri smiled. Very well. Half now. But if you're lying to me, Mr. Voss, the consequences will be severe for both of you. I don't lie about business. We'll see. Dmitri moved toward the elevator. I'll have an answer for you within 48 hours. In the meantime, keep Ms. Carter close. There are those in my organization who won't wait for my decision. After he left, the tension in the room deflated like a punctured balloon. Victor exhaled heavily. That went better than expected, he said. Or worse, Adrian replied. Dimitri's playing his own game. We won't know which way he's leaning until he makes his move. Lena had been silent throughout most of the exchange, processing the careful dance of threats and promises. Now she spoke. You just painted a target on both our backs. The target was already there, I just made it harder for them to take the shot. And if Dimitri decides to eliminate us both, solve his problem with violence instead of negotiation? Adrian looked at her, his dark eyes intense. Then we fight, and we win. Because losing isn't an option I'm willing to consider. Lena wanted to believe him, wanted to trust in the cold certainty he projected. But she'd seen enough of this world now to know that confidence didn't guarantee survival. What happens in the next 48 hours, she asked. We prepare for either outcome. If Dimitri agrees, we move forward with exposing the Delacroix family. If he doesn't, Adrian trailed off. If he doesn't, then we go to war. And war, Lena, is something I know how to win. The call came 36 hours later, 12 hours ahead of Dimitri's promised timeline. Lena was in the kitchen attempting to make coffee when she heard Adrian's phone ring. She'd learned to read the subtle shifts in his posture, the way his shoulders tightened fractionally when something important was happening. He answered without greeting. Yes. Even from across the room, Lena could hear the accented voice on the other end. Dmitri Volkov, his tone measured and final. The Delacroix family is no longer under Volkov protection, effective immediately. I've informed Richard that his services are no longer required. Adrian's expression didn't change, but Lena saw his hand relax slightly. And the second half of our agreement? Will be honored once I verify the Chen intelligence proves accurate. Initial reports suggest it is. Well played, Mr. Voss. Business is business. Indeed. However, I feel compelled to warn you. Richard Delacroix is not a man who accepts loss gracefully. Removing our protection does not remove his resources or his anger. What happens next is beyond my control. Understood. One more thing. The girl, she is stronger than I expected. Do not waste that strength on revenge. Revenge is expensive and rarely satisfying. A pause. I speak from experience. The line went dead. Adrian lowered the phone slowly, his dark eyes finding Lena across the kitchen island. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the magnitude of what had just happened settling between them like a physical presence. It's done, she said quietly. He agreed. He did. So Marcus and his father, they're vulnerable now. Very. Adrian pocketed his phone. Which makes them desperate, and desperate men are dangerous. As if summoned by the words, Victor burst through the door, his scarred face tight with urgency. We have a problem. Richard Delacroix just liquidated $15 million in assets. Cash withdrawal, offshore transfers, the works. He's preparing for something big. War or flight? Adrian asked. Unknown, but his security team has tripled in the last hour. Ex-military contractors, serious hardware. This isn't defensive posturing. Adrian's jaw tightened. He's going to make a move before the legal system can touch him. That's my read. And there's more. Marcus withdrew $500,000 from his personal accounts. He's been making calls to people off our radar, private numbers, encrypted communications. Lena felt ice spread through her chest. He's planning something. He's panicking, Adrian corrected. His father's protection is gone, the police investigation is closing in, and he knows I'm standing between him and you. Men like Marcus don't handle powerlessness well. So what do? We accelerate the timeline. Adrian turned to Victor. Get Detective Morrison on the line. Tell her if she wants Richard Delacroix, she needs to move tonight. And contact our people at the DA's office. I want immunity paperwork for Lena drafted and ready within the hour. Victor nodded and pulled out his phone, already dialing. Lena set down her coffee mug, her hands trembling slightly. This is really happening. After everything, it's actually happening. Adrian crossed to her, his presence solid and grounding. Are you ready? Once Morrison makes her move, there's no going back. The Delacroix family will know you cooperated. They'll know you're the reason their empire is falling. Good. Lena said, surprising herself with the vehemence in her voice. I want them to know. I want Marcus to understand that the woman he thought he broke is the one who destroyed him. Something flickered in Adrian's eyes, approval, maybe, or recognition. Then let's finish this. The next hours passed in controlled chaos. Detective Morrison arrived with 2 other investigators, all business as they set up in Adrian's conference room. The immunity agreement came through faster than Lena expected, pages of legal language that boiled down to one simple truth. She would testify against the Delacroix family in exchange for full protection from prosecution. Sign here, here, and here, the assistant DA said, a sharp woman named Catherine Chen, who looked barely 30 but carried herself with absolute authority. Once you sign, you're committed. Any deviation from truthful testimony voids the agreement. Lena signed without hesitation. Her handwriting looked strange on the formal documents, too ordinary for something so momentous. Good, Catherine said, collecting the papers. Now let's go over your testimony. We need every detail, every document you remember signing, every conversation that suggested illegal activity. They worked through the afternoon and into evening, Lena recounting her relationship with Marcus in clinical detail. The investigators took notes, asked clarifying questions, built their case brick by brick. It was exhausting and humiliating, laying bare her mistakes for strangers to judge. But it was also liberating. Every word she spoke was another nail in Marcus's coffin. Every document she described was more evidence of his crimes. By the time they finished, Lena felt hollowed out but strangely lighter, like she'd excised a poison she'd been carrying for months. This is solid, Morrison said, reviewing her notes. Combined with the financial records Adrian provided, we have enough to bring charges against both Richard and Marcus Delacroix. Money laundering, fraud, conspiracy, racketeering, the whole package. When do you move? Adrian asked from his position by the window. Warrants are being drafted now. We hit them at dawn. Simultaneous raids on the Delacroix Industries headquarters, Richard's home, and Marcus's penthouse. Morrison looked at Lena. You'll need to stay here. Once word gets out about the raids, things could get ugly. I'm not hiding, Lena said. Not anymore. You're not hiding. You're being strategic. There's a difference. After the investigators left, Lena found herself alone in the penthouse's vast living room. The city stretched out below. Millions of lights marking millions of lives, all of them carrying on normally, while hers had become something unrecognizable. You should eat something. She turned to find Adrian in the kitchen, doing something she'd never seen him do before, cooking, or attempting to. He was examining a pan with the same analytical intensity he brought to everything else. You cook? She asked, unable to hide her surprise. I heat things. Whether that qualifies as cooking is debatable. He gestured to the ingredients spread across the counter. Dr. Chen left instructions, said you need protein and iron for healing. This is allegedly pasta carbonara, though I make no promises. Lena crossed to the kitchen, peering at his setup. You've never made this before. I've never made anything before. Restaurants exist for a reason. Then why now? Adrian was quiet for a moment, cracking eggs with more force than necessary. Because you need to eat, and ordering in means exposing our location to delivery services. And because... He trailed off. Because in 12 hours, people I've known for years might die. Security guards doing their jobs, assistants who just wanted a paycheck, people who happen to be in the wrong place when the warrants execute. And I need to do something normal, something that isn't about violence or strategy or the cost of the choices we've made. Lena had never heard him speak like this. Uncertain, almost vulnerable. She watched him struggle with the pasta, measuring portions too precisely, checking Dr. Chen's instructions like they were tactical plans. Let me help, she said quietly. They worked together in comfortable silence, Lena guiding Adrian through the steps while he followed with the focus of someone defusing a bomb. When he added the eggs too early and nearly scrambled them, she laughed, the first genuine laugh she'd managed in weeks. It's not funny, Adrian said, but she caught the ghost of a smile on his lips. It's a little funny. You control a criminal empire, but you can't make pasta. Different skill sets. They ate at the kitchen island, the carbonara slightly overcooked but edible. Outside, the city continued its oblivious dance, unaware that tomorrow morning would bring raids and arrests and the toppling of a family that had seemed untouchable. "Thank you," Lena said quietly, "for all of this. For saving me, protecting me, giving me a chance to fight back. You're fighting for yourself. I just provided the arena." Still, she met his eyes. "I know what this cost you. The resources, the political capital, the risk of war with the Volkovs. You didn't have to do any of it." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "When I found you on that floor, bleeding and broken, I saw my mother, saw what she looked like after my father finished with her, and I remembered being 10 years old and powerless, unable to stop it, unable to save her." His voice remained flat, but Lena heard the emotion beneath it. "I couldn't save her, but I could save you, had to save you, even if it was selfish, even if it was about my own demons more than your reality. I had to try." Lena reached across the island and took his hand. He tensed at the contact but didn't pull away. "It wasn't selfish," she said. "It was human, and for what it's worth, I think your mother would be proud of the man you became." "Would she? I've killed people, Lena, hurt them, built an empire on the same violence that killed her. But you use that violence to protect people like me now. That has to count for something." Adrian's phone shattered the moment, buzzing with an urgency that made them both tense. He checked the screen, and his expression went cold. "It's Victor. Marcus is on the move." He answered on speaker. "Talk to me." Marcus just left his penthouse with 4 men, armed, professional. They're heading toward the financial district. "Toward us?" "Can't confirm, but the trajectory matches. ETA 20 minutes if they don't hit traffic." Adrian's eyes met Lena's. "How did he find this location?" "Unknown, but boss, there's something else. We intercepted communications. Marcus isn't coming to negotiate. He's coming to end this. His words, 'If I can't have her, no one can.'" Lena felt her blood turn to ice. After everything, after the raids being prepared and the immunity agreement and Dimitri's withdrawal of protection, Marcus was going to try one last desperate play. "Lock down the building," Adrian ordered. "Full security protocol. No one in or out without my authorization. And get our people in position. If Marcus wants a fight, we'll give him one." "Copy that. And Adrian, be careful. Men like Marcus, when they've lost everything, they've got nothing left to lose. That makes them unpredictable." The call ended. Adrian was already moving, pulling a handgun from a hidden compartment in the kitchen island and checking the magazine with practiced efficiency. "You keep a gun in the kitchen?" Lena asked, hysteria edging into her voice. "I keep weapons everywhere. Occupational hazard." He handed her a phone. Not hers, a different one. "This is a direct line to building security and to Victor. If something happens to me, you call them immediately. Don't try to be a hero. Don't try to handle it yourself. Just call." "Nothing's going to happen to you." "Probably not, but I don't believe in probably." He moved to a panel in the wall, pressing his palm against it. The panel slid open, revealing a compact armory. "This is the safe room. Reinforced steel, independent air supply, communications array. If Marcus somehow gets past building security and my people, you go in there and you lock it from the inside. Code is 7429. Lena stared at the safe room, at the weapons, at Adrian's cold efficiency. This was the reality of his world, always prepared for violence, always 3 steps ahead of disaster. "I don't want to hide in there while you fight Marcus. I don't want you to either, but wanting and reality are different things." Adrian checked his watch. 15 minutes. Security is reporting they've spotted Marcus's vehicle approaching. "Let me talk to him," Lena said suddenly. "Let me try to end this without more violence." "Absolutely not." "Adrian, he came here for me. Maybe if you what? Convince him to surrender peacefully?" "Marcus is beyond reason, Lena. He's lost everything. His father's respect, the Volkov protection, his freedom. The only thing he has left is revenge, and he's coming here to take it." "Then let him see me. Let him see that I'm not afraid anymore, that he doesn't have power over me. Maybe that will be enough." Adrian grabbed her shoulders, his grip firm but not painful. "Listen to me very carefully. Marcus Delacroix doesn't see you as a person. He sees you as property that escaped. And when property tries to assert independence, men like him destroy it rather than let it go. Talking to him won't help. It'll just give him a target. Before Lena could argue further, the building's alarm system activated. Not the blaring klaxon of a fire alarm, but a subtle, pulsing tone that made her skin crawl. "They're in the building," Adrian said, checking his phone. "Bypassed the main entrance somehow, moving toward the elevators." How is that possible? Money, connections, inside information, take your pick. He grabbed her hand. "Safe room, now." But Lena pulled back. "No, I'm not hiding while you face him alone. This isn't a discussion." "You're right, it's not. Because I'm not running anymore." She met his eyes, her fear hardening into determination. "Marcus has controlled every aspect of my life for 2 years, made me afraid, made me small, made me doubt myself. I won't let him do it again, even if it's dangerous, even if it's stupid. I need to face him. I need him to see what he failed to break." Adrian stared at her, conflict playing across his features. Finally, he nodded once. "Stay behind me. Do exactly what I say, when I say it. Understand?" "Yes." "And Lena? If I tell you to run, you run. No hesitation, no argument, because I can't protect you and fight Marcus at the same time." The elevator dinged. They'd somehow bypassed 40 floors of security, disabled every safeguard Adrian had installed. The doors slid open, revealing Marcus flanked by 4 men in tactical gear, all of them armed. But Lena only saw Marcus. He looked terrible. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his suit rumpled, his eyes wild with something that might have been desperation or madness or both. When his gaze found her, something in his expression cracked. "Lena." Her name came out broken. "Baby, thank goodness. These men, they kidnapped you, didn't they? It's okay. I'm here now. I'm going to save you." The delusion in his voice was almost pitiful. He actually believed his own fiction, had convinced himself that he was the hero of this story. "No one kidnapped me, Marcus," Lena said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I left because you nearly killed me. That's not... I would never..." He shook his head violently. "He's brainwashed you. Voss, he's some kind of criminal, and he's turned you against me. I turned against you the moment you broke my ribs and left me to die." Marcus flinched like she'd struck him. "I was trying to help you see reason. You were being irrational, threatening to leave, making wild accusations." "I asked you to stop going through my phone," Lena interrupted. "That's what started it. I asked for basic privacy, and you beat me for it." "You're confused. The trauma. I'm not confused. I'm finally seeing clearly." Lena stepped forward, ignoring Adrian's warning hand on her arm. "You're a coward, Marcus. You hide behind your family name, your money, your connections, but strip all that away, and you're just a pathetic man who hurts women because it's the only way you can feel powerful." Marcus's face went red, his carefully maintained mask shattering completely. "You ungrateful bitch. I gave you everything, elevated you from nothing, and this is how you repay me? You gave me nothing but pain and fear. I gave you purpose, direction. Without me, you were just another mediocre woman going nowhere." He took a step forward, his security team moving with him. "I made you important, and now you've destroyed my life, my family, everything. For what? For him?" He gestured at Adrian with contempt. "For myself," Lena said. "I destroyed you for myself." The admission hung in the air like a grenade. Marcus went very still, the kind of stillness that preceded violence. His hand moved toward the gun holstered at his side. Adrian moved faster. One moment he was standing beside Lena, the next he was between them, his own weapon drawn and aimed at Marcus's head with absolute steadiness. "Don't," Adrian said quietly. "This ends one of 2 ways, Marcus. You leave now and face the legal system tomorrow morning, or you draw that weapon and I put a bullet through your skull. Choose carefully." "You think you've won?" Marcus laughed, the sound unhinged. "You think taking everything from me means you get to keep her? I'd rather see her dead than with you." "Then you're going to be disappointed, because she's not with me. She's free. Something you could never allow." Marcus's security team tensed, hands moving toward weapons. Lena could feel the violence coiling in the air, could sense that they were seconds away from catastrophe. "Marcus, please," she said, hating the pleading tone but desperate to prevent bloodshed. "It's over. Your father's going to be arrested tomorrow. The Volkovs have withdrawn protection. Fighting now won't change any of that. It'll just get people killed." "Good," Marcus said. "If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. He drew his weapon. Everything happened in compression, time folding in on itself. Adrian's gun fired first, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Marcus screamed, his weapon clattering to the floor as Adrian's bullet tore through his shoulder. Then chaos. Marcus's security team drew their weapons, but Victor and 3 other men emerged from the stairwell behind them, having used the elevator as a distraction. Gunfire erupted, the penthouse transforming into a war zone in seconds. Adrian grabbed Lena and pulled her behind the kitchen island as bullets punched through walls and shattered windows. She could hear shouting, the distinctive crack of multiple weapons firing, someone screaming in pain. "Stay down," Adrian ordered, returning fire with the calm precision of someone who'd done this before. Through gaps in the counter, Lena saw Marcus crawling toward his dropped weapon, his injured shoulder trailing blood. His face was twisted in rage and pain, all pretense of sanity abandoned. "I'll kill you," he screamed at Lena. "I'll kill both of you." He grabbed the gun with his good hand, swinging it toward their position. Lena saw his finger tighten on the trigger, saw the hatred in his eyes, saw her death approaching with crystal clarity. Then Victor was there, tackling Marcus from the side. The gun fired wild, the bullet embedding itself in the ceiling. The 2 men struggled, Victor's superior size and training winning out. He wrenched the weapon away and pinned Marcus to the floor with brutal efficiency. "Clear," Victor shouted. "All hostiles down." The gunfire stopped. The sudden silence was almost worse than the noise had been, broken only by ragged breathing and the moans of wounded men. Lena's ears rang, her heart pounded against her ribs hard enough to hurt. Adrian pulled her to her feet, checking her for injuries with quick, efficient movements. "Are you hurt?" No, I'm fine." Her voice sounded strange, distant. "Is it over?" "Almost." He crossed to where Victor held Marcus pinned, looking down at the man who'd started this all. Marcus looked up at him with pure hatred, blood soaking through his expensive shirt. "Kill me," Marcus spat. "Go on, do it. Prove you're just like me." Adrian crouched down, his expression cold. "I'm nothing like you. You hurt people because you're weak. I hurt people when necessary, and I sleep just fine at night." He stood. "Call Detective Morrison. Tell her Marcus Delacroix just attempted murder, and we defended ourselves. She'll want to be here before the regular police arrive." "Already on it," Victor said, phone to his ear. Adrian returned to Lena, guiding her away from the carnage. "Are you sure you're okay?" "I don't know." She looked at the destroyed penthouse, at the blood and broken glass and the men groaning on the floor. "Is this what your life is always like?" "Not always. Sometimes it's worse." A laugh escaped her, inappropriate and slightly hysterical. "That's not reassuring. It wasn't meant to be. This is my reality, Lena. Violence, paranoia, constant vigilance. It's not a world I'd wish on anyone." She heard what he wasn't saying, that he was giving her an out, a chance to walk away before she got in any deeper. Lena looked at Marcus, broken and bleeding on the floor. Looked at the wreckage of his desperate last stand. Then she looked at Adrian, this complicated man who'd saved her life and protected her, and taught her that she was stronger than she'd ever believed possible. "I'm not going anywhere," she said firmly. Before Adrian could respond, the elevator dinged again. Detective Morrison emerged with a full tactical team, taking in the scene with a single sweep of her eyes. "Well," she said dryly, "this accelerates our timeline considerably." She crossed to Marcus, producing handcuffs with practiced efficiency. "Marcus Delacroix, you're under arrest for attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, and being phenomenally stupid." She yanked him to his feet, ignoring his cry of pain from his shoulder. "You have the right to remain silent, which I strongly suggest you exercise." 2 paramedics entered behind the tactical team, moving to treat the wounded. Morrison jerked her head toward Lena. "Miss Carter, I need your statement." Again, with considerably more detail this time. The next hours passed in a blur of police interviews, evidence collection, and controlled chaos. The Sentinel's 40th floor became a crime scene, photographers documenting every bullet hole and blood spatter, while investigators pieced together what had happened. Lena told her story for what felt like the 100th time, each repetition making it feel less real. Marcus was transported to the hospital under armed guard, his security team arrested on various charges. By the time the sun rose over the city, the whole mess had been documented, analyzed, and officially entered into the record. This is going to be everywhere by noon, Morrison said as her team packed up. High-profile family, attempted murder, criminal conspiracy. The media will have a field day. Good, Lena said. Let them see what Marcus really is. Morrison studied her for a moment. You've changed. First time we met, you were terrified. Now you're angry. Is that a problem? Not at all. Angry victims tend to make excellent witnesses. Morrison handed her a card. The trial will probably be 6 months out. Call me if you need anything before then. After everyone left, Lena stood at the shattered windows, looking out at the city waking up to a new day. Somewhere down there, Richard Delacroix was about to have a very bad morning. News crews were probably already gathering outside Delacroix Industries headquarters, eager for the story that would destroy a dynasty. You should rest, Adrian said from behind her. I should, but I'm too wired. That's adrenaline. It'll wear off soon. Lena turned to face him. What happens now? After the trials? After everything's settled? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. That depends on what you want. I can set you up anywhere. New city, new identity, enough money to start fresh. You'd be free. Free and alone. Alone is safer. Safer isn't always better. Lena closed the distance between them. You asked me once what I wanted when this was over. I think I finally know. What? I want to stop running, stop being afraid, stop letting what Marcus did define who I am. She met his eyes, and I want to see where this goes, whatever this is between us. Lena, I'm not a good man. My world is violent and complicated, and I know exactly who you are, Adrian. I've seen it. The violence, the control, the cold calculation. And I've also seen the man who saved a stranger because it was the right thing to do. Who makes terrible pasta because he wanted to do something normal? Who protects people like me because he couldn't protect his mother? She took his hand. You're not the monster you think you are. And you're not thinking clearly. The trauma, the adrenaline. Stop telling me what I'm feeling, Lena interrupted. I'm not confused or traumatized into some fantasy. I'm making a choice with open eyes. The question is whether you're brave enough to let me. Adrian stared at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his dark eyes. Then slowly, carefully, he pulled her into an embrace. His arms came around her with surprising gentleness, as if he was afraid she might break. Lena pressed her face against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong beneath the expensive fabric of his shirt. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt safe. Not the false safety of ignorance, but the real safety of being with someone who saw all her scars and chose to stay anyway. This won't be easy, Adrian said quietly. Nothing worth having ever is. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm. But 40 stories up, in a penthouse still littered with evidence of violence, two broken people held on to each other and chose to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could build something worth keeping from the wreckage of their pasts. The dawn raids happened exactly as Detective Morrison promised. Lena watched them unfold on the news from Adrian's repaired penthouse, still nursing coffee while the morning sun painted the city in shades of gold and amber. Every major network carried the story. Federal agents storming Delacroix Industries headquarters, Richard Delacroix being led out in handcuffs, his face carefully blank as cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions he refused to answer. They found everything, Adrian said, reading updates on his phone. The offshore accounts, the shell corporations, shipping manifests documenting illegal weapons transfers. Your signatures on those documents gave them probable cause to dig deeper. They're estimating over $200 million in laundered funds. Lena set down her coffee, her hands steady despite the magnitude of what she was seeing. How long will he get? 20 years minimum, if his lawyers can't work miracles. More likely 30 to 40 given the scope of the operation. Adrian's expression remained neutral, but she caught satisfaction in his tone. The Volkov organization is already distancing themselves publicly. Dmitry released a statement claiming they had no knowledge of Delacroix Industries' illegal activities. That's a lie. Of course it is. But it's a useful lie that lets everyone save face. Richard takes the fall alone. The Volkovs maintain plausible deniability, and the city's underworld maintains its delicate balance. And Marcus? Adrian's jaw tightened. Still in the hospital under guard. His lawyer's trying to negotiate a plea deal, but given he attempted murder in front of multiple witnesses, there's not much room for negotiation. He's looking at 15 to 20, possibly more if they connect him to any of his father's financial crimes. Lena should have felt triumphant. This was what she'd wanted, Marcus facing consequences, the Delacroix family's empire crumbling, justice finally served. But watching Richard's perp walk on television, she felt something more complicated than victory. She felt the weight of it all, the lives destroyed and futures altered because one man had decided his girlfriend was property he could abuse. "You're thinking too much," Adrian observed. "I'm thinking about all the people who worked for Delacroix Industries who didn't know what Richard was doing. The assistants and warehouse workers and drivers who just needed a paycheck. They're all out of work now because of choices they had no part in." "Collateral damage," Adrian said, not unkindly. "It's unfortunate but unavoidable. You can't dismantle a corrupt empire without affecting everyone connected to it." "I know. I just wish—" Lena stopped, shaking her head. "I don't know what I wish, that the world was simpler, maybe. That good and bad were clearer." "They rarely are." Adrian moved to sit beside her. "But what you did, exposing Marcus and Richard, that was unambiguously good. Don't let the complexity diminish that." Before Lena could respond, her phone rang. Not the secure one Adrian had given her, but her original phone that had been recovered from her apartment and returned by the police. She'd been avoiding turning it on, afraid of what she'd find. The caller ID showed a name that made her heart clench: Ethan. She'd been dodging her brother's calls for over a week now, unable to face his questions or his worry or his inevitable guilt over not protecting her. But watching the news coverage, knowing the story would go national within hours, she couldn't avoid him anymore. She answered. "Ethan." "Lena." Her brother's voice cracked on her name. "Jesus Christ, Lee. I've been losing my mind. Your apartment was destroyed, you disappeared, and then I see Marcus Delacroix on the news saying you were kidnapped and I didn't know whether to believe him or—" He stopped, clearly struggling for control. "Are you okay? Where are you?" "I'm safe. I'm sorry I didn't call sooner. Everything happened so fast and I didn't know how to explain." "Explain what? What happened? And why is Marcus Delacroix being arrested for attempted murder?" Lena glanced at Adrian, who nodded once and quietly left the room to give her privacy. She took a deep breath and told her brother everything: the abuse, the beating that had nearly killed her, the wrong number text that had saved her life, and everything that had followed. Ethan listened in silence, but she could hear his breathing getting harder, could practically feel his rage building through the phone line. "I'm going to kill him," he said when she finished. "I don't care if he's already in custody. I'm going to find a way to It's—" "Ethan, no. That's exactly what I don't need right now." "He nearly killed you, Lee. He beat you so badly you thought you were dying, and then he had the audacity to play the concerned boyfriend on TV. He deserves worse than prison." "Maybe. But prison is what he's getting, and that has to be enough." Lena kept her voice firm. "I need you to be my brother right now, not a cop planning revenge. Can you do that?" She heard him exhale slowly, fighting for the control that had made him good at his job. Yeah, I can do that. But Lee, this Adrian Voss, the man who saved you, he's not exactly an upstanding citizen. My precinct has files on him. Suspected racketeering, possible connection to several unsolved homicides, known association with— "I know who he is," Lena interrupted, "what he is. And I'm staying with him anyway. Lee, I'm not asking for your approval, Ethan. I'm telling you what's happening. Adrian saved my life when no one else did. He protected me when Marcus's family tried to silence me. Whatever he's done in his past, whatever he is, he was there when I needed someone." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Okay, I hear you, but I want to meet him, face to face. If you're going to be involved with this guy, I need to look him in the eye." "That's fair. When?" "Today. Name the place." Lena looked around the penthouse at the repaired windows and replaced furniture that still couldn't quite hide the evidence of the firefight that had happened here. "How do you feel about neutral territory?" They met at a coffee shop in Midtown, the kind of aggressively normal place that served overpriced lattes and played indie music just loud enough to provide privacy. Ethan arrived first, his detective's eyes scanning the room before settling on Lena. She saw him catalog her fading bruises, the careful way she moved to protect her healing ribs, the changes in her that went deeper than physical injuries. Then Adrian walked in, and Lena watched her brother's entire posture shift into cop mode, assessing threat levels, marking exits, his hand instinctively moving toward where his service weapon would be if he were on duty. Ethan, this is Adrian Voss. Adrian, my brother, Ethan Carter. The two men shook hands with the wariness of wolves establishing territory. They were similar heights, but where Ethan had the solid build of someone who worked out functionally, Adrian carried himself with the refined danger of someone who'd turned violence into an art form. Detective Carter, Adrian said neutrally, your sister speaks highly of you. Mr. Voss, I wish I could say the same, but honestly, everything I know about you comes from police files. Ethan's voice was professionally cold. And those files don't paint a flattering picture. I imagine not. Though I'd be curious to know what crimes you think you can prove versus what you suspect. Is that a challenge? It's an observation. I'm very careful about what can be proven. Lena held up a hand. Can we not do this? Ethan, I asked you here to meet Adrian, not to interrogate him. He's a known criminal, Lee. It's literally my job to interrogate people like him. Not today, it isn't. Today you're my brother, and he's the man who saved my life. Can we start there? Ethan's expression softened slightly as he looked at his sister. You really trust him? I do. Even knowing what he is? Especially knowing what he is, because unlike Marcus, Adrian never pretended to be something else. He's been honest about his world from the beginning, and he gave me the choice to walk away. Multiple times. Ethan turned his attention back to Adrian. Is that true? You gave her outs? Several, Adrian confirmed. New identity, relocation, enough money to start over anywhere she wanted. She chose to stay. Why? You'd have to ask her. I'm still trying to understand it myself. Despite himself, Ethan's lips quirked slightly. At least you're honest about your confusion. He gestured to the table. Sit, both of you. If we're doing this, we're doing it properly. They ordered coffee and settled into an uneasy triangle, Lena between the two most important men in her current life. For several minutes, nobody spoke, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on them. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. I should have protected you better. Should have seen what Marcus was doing. Should have pushed harder when you stopped returning my calls. This isn't your fault, Lena said firmly. Isn't it? I'm a cop, Lee. I'm trained to spot abusive relationships, and my own sister was in one, and I missed all the signs. You didn't miss them. You saw them, and you warned me. I chose not to listen. Still, Detective Carter, Adrian interrupted quietly, I've spent the last week watching your sister rebuild herself from someone who thought she was dying into someone who faced down her abuser and dismantled his entire family's empire. She's stronger than either of us gave her credit for. The question isn't whether you failed to protect her. It's whether you can support the person she's becoming. Ethan studied Adrian for a long moment. You care about her. Actually care. Not just protecting an asset or maintaining leverage. Yes. And if I told you to stay away from her, that she deserves better than a relationship with someone whose business card should read professional criminal, I'd tell you that's her decision, not yours. But I'd also agree that she deserves better than me. Then why not walk away? Adrian was quiet, his dark eyes finding Lena's across the table. Because she asked me not to, and I'm selfish enough to honor that request. Lena reached across the table and took Adrian's hand, a gesture of solidarity that made Ethan's jaw tighten. I know this isn't what you wanted for me, she said to her brother. I know Adrian isn't the safe, normal boyfriend you'd choose, but he's what I'm choosing, and I need you to respect that, even if you don't understand it. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made Lena's chest ache. I hate this. Everything about this situation makes my cop instincts scream. But you're my sister, and you're an adult, and you're right that this is your choice. He looked at Adrian. But hear me on this. If you hurt her, if you put her in danger, if you give me any reason to believe she's not safe with you, cop or not, brother or not, I will find a way to end you. Are we clear? Crystal, Adrian said without hesitation. For what it's worth, Detective, I have no intention of hurting her. I've hurt enough people in my life. She won't be one of them. Good. Because the Delacroix family learned the hard way what happens when you hurt people I care about. You're smarter than they were. Don't make their mistakes. They finished their coffee in slightly less hostile silence, Ethan asking careful questions about Lena's recovery and her plans for the future. She answered honestly. She was staying with Adrian for now, working with a therapist doctor. Chen had recommended preparing to testify at Marcus's trial. And after the trial? Ethan asked. I don't know yet. Figure out who I am now, I guess. Build a life that's actually mine. You could go back to school. You were always talking about getting your master's degree. Lena considered that. Before Marcus, she'd had plans. Graduate school, a career in nonprofit management, a future she'd been excited about. Then Marcus had systematically dismantled every dream until all she had left was him. Maybe, she said, though I'm thinking about something different now. Like what? She glanced at Adrian, then back to her brother. Like helping other women get out of situations like mine, using what happened to me to make sure fewer people end up trapped. Ethan's expression softened completely. That's a good goal, Lee. Really good. When they finally stood to leave, Ethan pulled Lena into a tight hug, careful of her healing ribs. I love you, he whispered, and I'm sorry I couldn't protect you when you needed it. You're protecting me now. That's what matters. He pulled back, keeping his hands on her shoulders. Call me more often. Don't make me track you down through police reports. I promise. Ethan turned to Adrian, extending his hand again. Take care of her. I will, Adrian said, and Lena heard the weight of a vow in those two simple words. The next weeks settled into a strange new rhythm. Lena continued her physical therapy, her ribs healing incrementally while Dr. Chen monitored her progress. The media frenzy around the Delacroix arrests intensified, with investigative journalists uncovering layer after layer of corruption. Marcus's name became synonymous with domestic violence, his face a cautionary tale plastered across tabloids and news sites. Lena avoided most of the coverage, but she couldn't escape it entirely. The public had decided she was either a hero or a gold digger, depending on which narrative they preferred, with think pieces analyzing everything from her relationship choices to her testimony strategy. You're trending on social media, Victor announced one morning, showing her his phone with something like amusement. Number 3 nationwide, behind a pop star's breakup and a politician's scandal. Lucky me, Lena said dryly. Could be worse. At least they're mostly calling you brave instead of stupid. Mostly? Some people think you're a plant by rival criminal organizations to take down the Delacroix family. The conspiracy theories are honestly impressive in their creativity. Adrian appeared in the doorway. Stop showing her that garbage. She should know what's being said. Why? So she can torture herself reading opinions from people who don't know her and don't matter? Victor shrugged but pocketed his phone. Your call, boss. After he left, Adrian joined Lena on the balcony where she'd been watching the city wake up. It had become her favorite spot. 40 stories above the chaos, close enough to see life happening, but distant enough to feel safe. How are you doing? Adrian asked. Honestly, I don't know. Some days I feel strong, like I'm finally becoming who I was meant to be. Other days I can barely get out of bed because everything feels overwhelming. She turned to face him. Is that normal? After trauma? Completely normal. Healing isn't linear. Some days will be better than others. You speak from experience. Too much of it. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the morning light paint the buildings in shades of gold. Somewhere below, people were going to work, starting their days, living normal lives that didn't include testimony preparation or criminal trials or rebuilding from violence. I've been thinking, Lena said slowly, about what comes after the trial, after Marcus is sentenced, after all of this finally ends. And I want to start a foundation. Use the money Marcus's family laundered under my name. The accounts are frozen now, but eventually some of that will be released. I want to turn it into something good. Resources for domestic violence survivors, legal aid, safe housing, all the things I wished I'd had when I was trying to leave. Adrian was quiet for a moment. That's a significant undertaking. It'll put you in the public eye permanently. I know, but hiding helped no one. Maybe being visible can help someone else. It will also make you a target. People who benefited from the Delacroix family's operations won't appreciate you profiting from their downfall, even for a good cause. Let them be upset. I'm done being afraid of what powerful men might do to me. Adrian smiled, a real smile that softened his usually hard features. You've changed. When I met you, you could barely speak without flinching. When you met me, I was dying on a floor, low bar for improvement. Still, the change is remarkable. Lena moved closer to him. That's because I finally have space to breathe, to think, to be someone other than who Marcus decided I should be. She took his hand. Thank you for giving me that space. I didn't give you anything. You took it yourself. Maybe, but you held the door open. Adrian pulled her into an embrace, and Lena rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. It was steady and strong, an anchor in the chaos her life had become. I love you, she said quietly. The words had been building for weeks, waiting for the right moment. This felt right, simple and honest, no drama or grand gestures, just truth. Adrian tensed slightly, and for a moment Lena worried she'd miscalculated. Then his arms tightened around her. I love you too, he said, his voice rough with emotion he rarely showed. I didn't think I was capable of it anymore, but you... He stopped, struggling for words. You make me want to be someone worth loving. You already are. Lena, I've done terrible things. Hurt people, destroyed lives, built an empire on violence and fear. You know that intellectually, but I don't think you understand the reality of what that means. The blood on my hands won't wash off. She pulled back to look at him. I'm not naive enough to think you're secretly a good person who just needs love to redeem him. I know who you are, Adrian, what you've done. And I love you anyway, not in spite of your darkness, but with full awareness of it. That's not healthy. Says who? The same society that told me to forgive Marcus because he had a temper? The same people who looked the other way when I showed up with bruises? Lena shook her head. I'm done letting other people define what's healthy for me. You saved my life. You protected me. You gave me the tools to fight back. That's real. Everything else is just noise. Adrian searched her face, looking for doubt or delusion. Whatever he found made something in his expression crack, revealing the vulnerable man beneath the controlled exterior. I don't deserve you, he said. Probably not, but I'm choosing you anyway. He kissed her then, gentle and careful, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. Lena kissed him back with all the certainty she felt, pouring everything she couldn't say into the connection between them. When they finally broke apart, the sun had fully risen, painting the city in brilliant light. The trial began 3 months later in a courtroom packed with journalists, victims' advocates, and curious onlookers drawn by the scandal. Marcus sat at the defense table looking diminished, his shoulder healed but his spirit clearly broken. His expensive lawyers surrounded him, but everyone in the room knew this was theater. The evidence was overwhelming, the outcome predetermined. Lena took the stand on the second day of testimony. She wore a simple blue dress that Adrian had helped her pick out. Professional without being provocative, modest without being dowdy. She wanted the jury to see her as credible, sympathetic, human. Marcus's lawyer, a silver-haired man named Henderson, who charged $1,000 an hour, approached her with the kind of practiced sympathy that made her skin crawl. Ms. Carter, you claim my client beat you so severely you thought you were dying. Yet here you are, fully recovered, looking healthy. Isn't it possible you're exaggerating the severity of these alleged injuries? I have medical records documenting 3 broken ribs, severe bruising, and internal bleeding, Lena replied evenly. Those aren't allegations, they're facts. Medical records that were obtained by Adrian Voss, a known criminal. How do we know they weren't fabricated? Because I was treated by licensed physicians, whose credentials you're welcome to verify. And because the police took additional photographs when they interviewed me. Would you like to see those as well? Henderson's smile tightened. Ms. Carter, isn't it true that you signed numerous legal documents on behalf of Delacroix Industries? Yes. And isn't it true that you profited significantly from your relationship with Marcus Delacroix? Expensive gifts, access to high society, a lifestyle far beyond what you could afford on your own? He bought me things, yes. That doesn't give him the right to beat me. Of course not. But it does establish a pattern of you benefiting from the Delacroix family's wealth. Some might say you used Marcus for financial gain, then turned on him when he tried to end the relationship. He didn't try to end the relationship, Lena said, her voice hardening. He tried to end my life. There's a difference. According to you, but we only have your word for what happened in that apartment. No witnesses, no video, just your testimony against his. And given your current relationship with Adrian Voss, a man with significant reason to want the Delacroix family destroyed, one has to wonder if your testimony is colored by outside influence. Lena looked directly at the jury, making eye contact with each person. I understand why you might question my motives, why you might think I have something to gain by testifying. But ask yourselves this: what woman would voluntarily put herself through this scrutiny, this public humiliation, this dissection of the worst moments of her life, unless it was true? What could possibly be worth enduring this kind of examination? She turned back to Henderson. I'm here because Marcus Delacroix nearly killed me and deserves to face consequences. Not because Adrian Voss asked me to be, not because I want revenge, but because silence protects abusers, and I'm done being silent. The prosecutor, Catherine Chen, took over after Henderson's cross-examination. She walked Lena through every detail of her relationship with Marcus: the gradual isolation, the escalating control, the final violence that had left her broken on her apartment floor. It was painful and humiliating, but Lena forced herself to be thorough, to hold nothing back. By the time she stepped down from the witness stand, she felt wrung out, but strangely lighter. She'd told her truth publicly, officially, for the record. Whatever the jury decided, she'd done everything she could. Adrian was waiting in the hallway when she emerged from the courtroom. He didn't ask how it went or offer empty reassurances. He just pulled her into his arms and held her while she shook with reaction. It's done, she whispered. I did it. You did. And you were magnificent. The trial lasted 2 more weeks, a parade of witnesses and experts and evidence that built an overwhelming case against Marcus. His father Richard appeared via video from prison, refusing to answer most questions on the advice of his lawyer. The Volkov organization was mentioned obliquely, but never directly implicated, a careful dance that kept them insulated from the Delacroix collapse. When the jury returned after only 4 hours of deliberation, Lena knew what their verdict would be before the foreman spoke. We find the defendant, Marcus Delacroix, guilty of attempted murder in the 1st degree. The courtroom erupted. Journalists rushed for the exits to file their stories. Marcus's mother sobbed in the front row. His lawyers immediately began preparing appeals, but Lena just closed her eyes and breathed. Guilty. Officially, legally, publicly guilty. The sentencing hearing happened 2 weeks later. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Patricia Hernandez, listened to impact statements from Lena and character witnesses for Marcus before pronouncing sentence. Mr. Delacroix, you have been convicted of attempting to murder a woman whose only crime was trusting you. You used your wealth, your connections, and your family's power to hurt someone vulnerable and then attempted to silence her when she tried to seek help. This court finds such behavior not only criminal, but morally reprehensible. She paused, looking down at Marcus with clear contempt. I hereby sentence you to 25 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 15 years. Additionally, you are ordered to pay restitution to Miss Carter in the amount of $500,000 for medical expenses, pain and suffering, and the cost of rebuilding her life. Marcus's face went white. His lawyers immediately began filing objections, but Judge Hernandez silenced them with a look. This sentence is final. Take him away. As bailiffs led Marcus out of the courtroom in handcuffs, he looked back at Lena one final time. She met his gaze steadily, no longer afraid of the man who'd once controlled every aspect of her existence. Then he was gone, and it was truly over. Outside the courthouse, reporters mobbed Lena, shouting questions and shoving microphones in her face. Adrian's security team kept them at a distance while she made a brief statement. Today, justice was served. Marcus Delacroix will spend the next 15 years in prison, unable to hurt anyone else the way he hurt me. But this isn't just about one man's crimes. It's about the systems that enable abuse, the people who look away, and the courage it takes to speak up when every instinct tells you to stay silent. She paused, gathering her thoughts. To anyone watching this who's in a relationship that makes them afraid, you deserve better. You deserve safety and respect and love that doesn't come with conditions or violence. And if you're ready to leave, there are people who will help you. You don't have to die on a floor somewhere, sending desperate messages and hoping someone cares enough to come. Miss Carter, a reporter shouted. What's your relationship with Adrian Voss? Lena glanced at Adrian, who stood slightly behind her, his presence a solid wall of protection. Adrian saved my life when no one else did. Whatever else he may be, whatever his past holds, that's the truth that matters to me. We're building something together. What that becomes is between us. But Mr. Voss has known connections to organized crime. This press conference is over, Victor announced, his bulk suddenly between Lena and the reporters. Ms. Carter has said everything she's going to say. They extracted her from the crowd and into a waiting car. As they pulled away from the courthouse, Lena watched the scene recede in the side mirror. Reporters still shouting questions, cameras still flashing, the machinery of public interest grinding on without her. You did well, Adrian said. I said what needed to be said. And now? Now I want to go home, take a very long shower, and forget this entire day happened. Home meaning the penthouse? Lena realized she'd called it home without thinking. Adrian's penthouse, which she'd been living in for months now, had stopped feeling temporary somewhere along the way. Yes, she said firmly. Home. 6 months later, Lena stood in a completely different building, a renovated brownstone in the Arts District that had been transformed into the Carter Foundation's headquarters. The name had been Adrian's suggestion, a way of reclaiming her identity from the Delacroix Association that had defined her for so long. The foundation officially opened on a crisp autumn morning, with Ethan cutting the ribbon while Lena gave a speech to the gathered crowd of supporters, donors, and domestic violence advocates. They'd started small, a helpline, a network of volunteer lawyers, partnerships with existing shelters, but already they were making a difference. 3 women had used their services in the first week alone. 3 women who might have ended up like Lena, or worse, if they'd had nowhere to turn. Your mother would be proud, Adrian said quietly, standing beside her as the crowd mingled. Lena's mother had passed away when she was 18, too early to see her daughter's worst moments or her greatest triumphs. But Lena liked to think Adrian was right, that somehow her mother knew what she'd built from the ashes of her destruction. I think she would be, Lena agreed, though she'd probably have some choice words about my taste in men. Adrian smiled. Fair. I'm objectively a terrible choice. And yet here we are. Here we are, he echoed. They'd settled into an unusual but functional relationship over the past months. Adrian continued running his organization. Lena didn't ask for details, and he didn't volunteer them, an understanding they'd reached early on. She ran the foundation and slowly rebuilt her life, going back to school part-time and reconnecting with friends she'd lost during the Marcus years. It wasn't traditional or simple or anything society would approve of, but it was theirs. Ethan approached with a woman Lena didn't recognize, mid-30s, professional attire, kind eyes. Lee, this is Dr. Sarah Martinez. She runs the trauma center at Metropolitan Hospital. I thought you two should meet. They shook hands, and Lena immediately liked Sarah's firm grip and direct gaze. Your brother tells me the foundation is looking to expand its mental health services, Sarah said. We are. Right now we can only offer referrals, but I'd love to have in-house counseling available. I might be able to help with that. I have several colleagues who specialize in domestic violence trauma. Maybe we could set up a meeting? I'd love that. As Sarah and Lena discussed logistics, Adrian and Ethan drifted away, finding themselves alone by the refreshment table. They developed a careful truce over the past months, built on mutual respect for Lena and tacit agreement not to examine each other's activities too closely. She's happy, Ethan observed. Happier than I've seen her in years. She is, Adrian agreed. You're good for her. I hate admitting that, but it's true. I'm not sure I agree, but I appreciate the sentiment. Ethan turned to face him fully. I did some digging into your past. Not officially, just curiosity. Find anything interesting? Quite a bit, actually, including several instances of you protecting women in situations similar to Lena's. Almost like you have a pattern of intervening in domestic violence cases. Adrian's expression didn't change. Your point? No point. Just an observation. Ethan paused. Your mother. What happened to her wasn't your fault. You know that, right? Is this your attempt at therapy, detective? It's my attempt at saying I understand why you did what you did for Lee, and that despite everything, despite who you are and what you do, I'm grateful you were there when she needed someone. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Your sister saved my life as much as I saved hers. Maybe more. Before her, I was just going through motions, building power for its own sake. She gave me something to protect that actually mattered. Then don't screw it up. I'll do my best. The Foundation's opening event wound down as evening approached. Supporters drifted away with promises to donate and volunteer, leaving Lena to survey her new kingdom with satisfaction. The brownstone was beautiful, the mission was clear, and she'd built something meaningful from the wreckage Marcus had tried to make of her life. Tired? Adrian asked, appearing at her elbow with a glass of wine. Exhausted, but the good kind of exhausted, you know? Like I actually accomplished something. You did. This place is going to help a lot of people. I hope so. Lena accepted the wine and took a sip, looking around at the space she'd created. You know what's strange? Sometimes I'm almost grateful for what happened with Marcus. That's the trauma talking. Maybe. Or maybe it's perspective. If he hadn't nearly killed me, I wouldn't have sent that wrong number text. Wouldn't have met you. Wouldn't have found this purpose. She turned to face Adrian. I'm not glad he hurt me, but I'm glad for where it led. That's a healthier way of framing it. Dr. Chen would be proud. They stood together as the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Somewhere out there, Marcus was serving his sentence. His father was awaiting trial on additional charges, and the Delacroix Empire had crumbled into dust. But here, in this brownstone that represented hope and second chances, Lena had built something that would outlast all the destruction. I got something for you, Adrian said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Lena's heart jumped. Adrian, it's not what you think. Or maybe it is. I don't know. I'm not good at this. He opened the box to reveal a key. It's to the penthouse. Official, not just borrowed. I want you to stop thinking of it as my place and start thinking of it as our place. Lena took the key, feeling the weight of what he was offering. Adrian Voss, who trusted no one and let even fewer people into his spaces, was giving her permanent access to his home. It wasn't a ring, but in some ways it meant more. A commitment from a man who didn't make them lightly. Our place, she repeated. I like the sound of that. Good, because I'm terrible at grand gestures and this is probably the best I can do. Lena laughed and kissed him, tasting wine and promise and the future they were building together. It's perfect. You're perfect. Well, not actually perfect. You're kind of a disaster in most conventional ways, but perfect for me. High praise. Don't let it go to your head. They locked up the Foundation and walked to where Adrian's car waited. Victor was driving, as always, his scarred face impassive as they climbed in. Home? He asked. Home, Lena confirmed, and felt the rightness of the word settle in her chest. The city passed by outside the tinted windows, millions of lives intersecting and diverging in patterns too complex to track. Somewhere in that chaos, a woman might be sending a desperate message, hoping someone would care enough to come. And tomorrow, when she called the Carter Foundation's helpline, someone would answer. Someone would care. Someone would come. Lena leaned against Adrian's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing, and thought about wrong numbers and right timing, and the strange paths that led broken people toward healing. She'd started this journey dying on a floor, alone and afraid, certain her life was over. Instead, she'd found a new life. Messier and more complicated than anything she'd planned, but undeniably hers. Built not on someone else's expectations or demands, but on her own choices and strength and refusal to stay broken. The penthouse was warm and welcoming when they arrived. The city lights spread below like a blanket of stars. Adrian poured them both whiskey while Lena kicked off her shoes and settled onto the couch. To new beginnings, Adrian said, raising his glass. To wrong numbers that turn out right, Lena countered. They drank, and outside the window the city continued its eternal dance, beautiful and brutal and full of infinite possibility. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Lena felt something she'd thought Marcus had destroyed forever. Hope for tomorrow, and the day after that, and all the days that would follow. She was free, she was strong, she was loved, she was home.